Hello. Ooh, okay. All right. So today's an OJL. OJL stands for Oracle Juice Live, where I drink because I want to, not because I need to. Anyway, today I've mixed Pepsi with my mango chili rum. So I've heard of like a rum and coke. And there were Pepsis in the back, so I just grabbed one. And at first, I like poured the Pepsi over ice and then added like a splash of the rum. I took a sip. I was like, "Ooh, I don't think the chili and the mango chili like plays well. It doesn't mix well. It doesn't play well with other beverages. It seems." Also, I found my glasses. Um, and yeah, this angle seems a bit not head on today, but it's fine. I'm not gonna fight with it because I'll be here all night. Anyway, but then I mixed it up. The ice started smelling a little bit, and I'm like, okay, that's pleasant. So yeah, I've ugh, girl. I don't know where I've been. I don't know. It's like I've been here. I feel like I've just been like very mentally preoccupied for a hot minute. And so I'm just like, whatever. And when I like sit to do this or these, it's different. But in like, besides that, I'm just like, but today, like, I reached out to people. Some of the people I've been meaning to reach out to, like, I still haven't reached out to some of the other folks I've been meaning to reach out to. And anyway, I talked to my journey buddy a little bit today. And she said something about the year of the snake, which actually at first I was like, oh, but I think I may have talked about it before. And even before that, I've been like wanting to pull to see if there's basically like anything that the year of the snake not like wants to close out or is still working on. But yeah, just to see what comes out. So I've mixed the SKT Vitruvian and Revelations edition. Um, because I don't want to do one or the other necessarily. So I'll let them come out. I'm gonna get 3 cards because 3 feels like the number. I mean, I guess it was a 9 year, and there are 3 3s in 9, or 3 to a second power. Anyway, I'm kind of gravitating towards that 3 to the second power, though, just because of the 9 of Swords, 6 of Swords that came out as the challenge recently. And so if you divide 3 and 6 by, if you divide 9 and 6 by 3, excuse me, you get this like, or if you put it in thirds, there's like 3 in the first third for the 9, 2 of the 6 for every third. There's 3 from the 9, 2 from the 6. So that after 3 repetitions, you get to 6 and 9, but 9 and 6. Because if I could form a thought, that'd be anyway. I'm using these two, and I use them to mean different things, the different versions and editions of the SKT. And it didn't feel appropriate for me to assign a meaning and then pull from one or the other. So I just combined them. Right now, they are slightly different. So you can see they're not necessarily like extremely homogenous. Also, I had to like shuffle it in parts. We have the demon and the hunt at the cut. And what I love about this, it being this hunt, is in the Vitruvian edition of the hunt, you don't see the woman with the torch. And so it's like now something is sort of like brought to light. And when it's brought to light, it may not necessarily make it easier to deal with, but at least now you can see where you need to swing if you want to break the chains, right? So rather than just like swinging in the dark, you at least now know what to sort of like aim for, right? So yeah, I guess I'm gonna keep going. I want 3 cards, and I guess I'll take whatever falls. Claim flips, claim falls. Then after I get 3 cards, I'm going to look before and after those cards in the other edition of the deck. I say that, but I kind of want to do it one at a time. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. I feel like this past 24 hours has been interesting. The past 24 to 48. I feel like something's a shifting or a moving or something's a coming. I'm actually like somewhat enjoying this. I think the key for me too is like I'm not a mixologist. So I don't know like ratios, right? Like how much rum is too much when you add it to a Pepsi. Anyway, I guess we're gonna get into it. 6 minutes and 22 seconds could be worse. I guess that's it. Before I started this, because sometimes I don't like practice or perform the entrance to like the beginning of these, but like as I know that I'm going live and as I'm like getting the webcam and like everything, sometimes, as I'm like, I'll just be like, oh, hey, blah, 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 before I turn on the camera. And today it was like friends and family of the veil, but also like friends and family of the void. And if we're talking about the snake, you could say on a certain level that, like, because snakes are associated with shedding, right? So it could be like peeling back layers of reality, but more so in the sense of like the motivations of certain things, the mechanisms through which things occur or happen, or something of that nature, right? And it's like of the veil because friends and family of the veil, excuse me, as those who have now seen behind the curtain, right? And like the Wizard of Oz comes to mind. And it's not necessarily seeing that the wizard is just some dude. But it's almost very like, how sometimes when, like, we know that, like, no one has it figured out, we're all sort of doing our best. But those moments where, like, maybe someone that you, like, look up to or admire, or someone that you think has it all figured out, like, when you realize that they don't have it all figured out, and realizing that they don't have it all figured out doesn't necessarily take away from what they're doing. Sometimes it's more inspiring, right? Like, it was kind of both. I had this experience where I kind of like realized, I don't know if I was told before I realized. I was told some things, and then after I was told, I started to realize more things. And again, like, it doesn't take away for me, especially where I was when I had that realization, as someone that like thinks and overthinks sometimes to the point where action isn't necessarily taken. I find it like I feel like inspiring isn't the word necessarily. I hold like appreciation and admiration for someone that's like, I don't know what I'm doing, but you just got to get out there and do something. And I was like, oh wow, like you don't have to overthink it until you know what I mean. Um. So yeah, it can. Anyway, I feel like I almost got lost on that tangent, if not actually got lost on that tangent. I know, like, I looked for these, but I kind of want to just keep them off. We'll keep them off for now. I was gonna have like binaural beats in my ears because I was wearing my headphones, and I was like, these are kind of comfy. I have a comfy pair, and then I was recently gifted a pair. I'm making sure my laptop is plugged up and it's not just gonna die on me. um, I have a comfy pair, and then I have another pair. The other pair I like. It's like a better listening experience, but the comfy pair is like comfy. So I like their noise canceling. I like the ambient mode of the other ones better. Um, but yeah, I guess that was a while ago. So anyway, I've stretched that 6 minutes into 10, and I feel like maybe I'm finally ready to. I wish I had. I'm just gonna ask Google. Heads, I'll get into it. Tails, we'll get into it. Hey Google, flip a coin, please. Flip a coin, please.
It's heads. Would you like me to flip it again?
Heads, I'll get into it. Okay, so I was talking to my number one fan maybe about a week ago, if not more at this point. And I was just like, because there are some times when, and this is something I've talked about before, when like I'm reading something and I can project. I'll say that because uh, there are some times where like I'm either reading, sometimes I am reading something and even like see it and I'll see these different points where it can get kind of fuzzy, or as I'm getting into it, I can tell where it may get a little fuzzy. Fuzzy meaning like where it may be like open to interpretation, but open to interpretation in a way where it can be a point of like forced resonance, right? Where so, and that's why I say I'm projecting because I don't know, but I could imagine someone like sort of like this could be a point where someone's like, "Oh, I like this or I like that," or like, and like I'm gonna claim it. And this is the point that kind of sort of like is I don't want to say the weakest, but it's a point of like a potential point of entry. Excuse me. So sometimes I'll go off and talk about like I'll kind of like try to clarify it or define it in a way that feels like resonant to the energy as a sort of like disqualifier, but a disqualifier in terms of like if this doesn't like there's potential to force a resonance here, but if these things also don't resonate, then it may not be wise to try to force it here, because just because we want something to be resonant or true doesn't necessarily always mean that it will be resonant or true, especially if it requires something of us that we can't give or that we're not going to give regardless of ability, right? And so I was just like talking to her because I feel like, it's not that I always get sidetracked, but it can be different than how the cards read. And so if I just read the cards, it doesn't necessarily go that way. Kind of sort of overthinking it as I do. Like for the people that it resonates for, it's going to continue to resonate. And for the people that it won't resonate for, it won't. And so I was just like, one day, a few days after that, maybe in that same day, there was an energy that I had like seen on a card. And I was like, it's kind of like that. And I couldn't recall at the time, but it's like Turiel Angel of the Mountain in the Angelarium at the part where he said something about like their gaze falls on it like an avalanche and I must protect it from them. Right. I'm no necessarily like gatekeeper. I'm not gonna say I'm not, but I won't say I am. Cause again, but it was just that like sometimes in general. And it's anyway, I don't know why. I'm like clarifying this, but there have been a lot of times, and then I'll be like, as the cards came out and as I'm reading it, whoever, but of course that's the point. Like whoever I'm like this resonates for, I don't see like this potential point or that potential whatever being an area of concern, right? But sometimes I do clarify. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's not completely necessary all the time because if someone's going to claim it and it's not theirs or for them, then they're going to do that regardless. But also, I don't know. Anyway, that was it. So now we're 16. It's been 10 whole minutes. The sad thing is, I don't have any water because that's what I used to fill my water. Also, this is a complete aside. I lost my big, like, water jug. Now I'm wondering if I packed it up because I don't know if I've had it since I moved. But I haven't been able to find another one. And now everything is so Stanley Cup crazy. It's like I'm not looking for a Stanley Cup. I'm looking for my like it was like half a gallon big that I would just fill up with water and just like drink. Anyway, okay. So let me give this one more shuffle. Actually, oh, there we go. Related to what I just shared, a card flipped over. The only thing is like if I get a clean flip, this deck is massive. It's the Hierophant upright. I'm actually gonna take it with the card before and after. The Hierophant in the Revelations edition, upright with two cards from the Vitruvian edition flanking it. Now in the Vitruvian edition, there is a little bit of a what the Hierophant has become energy. In the Revelations edition, it's like a true Hierophant energy. True being a Hierophant that doesn't occupy the space of the divine, because the Hierophant is a liaison too, but not necessarily like in like let's say there's a particular faith and there are leaders of that faith. Like the Hierophant serves to guide others to the creator, the deity or deities of that faith. The Hierophant isn't necessarily supposed to be venerated themselves. Anyway. Oh, look, it's with the elephants too. I don't know if you can tell, but there we go. That, oh, you can see it. Usually I move that and the camera angle is like up a little bit more, but it's there today. So, I mean, it's not always there. In between the Nocturne Jupiter and Capricorn and the Destroyer, the Sun in Gemini. So we got Sun in Gemini, Taurus, and Capricorn. The Nocturne, though, is this sort of like in between worlds. Oh, that's interesting. And even in the sky of the Destroyer, it's dark, right? So it almost speaks to this in between space. I'm trying to think of the relationship between Gemini and Capricorn. Gemini is before Cancer, so they in conjunct. They're 5 signs away. So they can be kind of triny or they can be kind of squarey. Or I guess it would be kind of triny or kind of opposy between a trine and an opposition. Anyway, Okay, yeah, because what I was talking about, right? So, number one, I'm not interested in being anybody's hierophant. Like, I would like to say or believe or think that I'm more about providing a different perspective on some things, maybe, or giving my 2 cents, or trying with relative success at reading whatever, right? And just it's almost like with the same intention of honoring and protecting what is for whoever that resonates for. I also attempt to honor and protect those that it may not resonate for, but who may put themselves on a path that is not theirs to walk or to follow, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's like that time, energy, effort, heartache, whatever, like doesn't have to be wasted. Because I'm all about efficiency, apparently. I'm all about not wasting time, energy, or effort. I'm more so about personally. Professionally, it's a different story. Personally, I'm about not wasting time, energy, or effort. Like the last thing I want to feel like is that I wasted my time, my energy, or my effort. Because when it comes to energy, I'm a sleepy boy. I like to rest, and I don't always have a whole bunch of capital to spend. When it comes to time, I appreciate my alone time and I appreciate my downtime. And so if I am spending the time doing something or if I'm spending the time with someone, I'd like to get more out of it than I would enjoy not having done whatever, and so on and so forth. And so again, it like it works out for both. I feel like there are so many cases and instances where we kind of sort of end up following a star that doesn't align to our north, or it's not north for us, right? Like, let's say that you are in Canada and somebody else is in the metaphor broke down before it even started. Let's say one person is in Canada and the other person is in Mexico, right? So, while it is true that what is north of Canada is also north of Mexico, what is false is what is situational is or questionable is what is north of Mexico. Because something north of Mexico could be south of Canada, for example. And so while you're following a North Star from Mexico, it could be guiding you south if you're starting in Canada. There's a metaphor. And I think sometimes it can be, sometimes we can like buy into something that's not necessarily for us. At the same time, we are living, growing beings who are also, you know, living and growing and finding out. Maybe we find out, but to save someone potentially from going south instead of following their north, I clarify as well. Oh, look, and then we have the north node and the south node. Cool. Love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah. And then the destroyer. The Ten of Swords used to be one of my favorite cards. The Ten of Swords, the Tower, like cards that were about things that need to end ending. When I first got into like tarot and stuff, that's where I was in my life. And so that's why they were my favorite cards. Because although challenging and sometimes painful and disheartening, ultimately, when you get on the other side of it, you're going to be better for it. Right. So cool. Love that energy. And I also love that, like, when it comes to Lord Ganesh, from what I know, and my knowledge is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Lorganesh is associated with overcoming barriers and obstacles, but also establishing them. So, overcoming what needs to be overcome and establishing a barrier as a sort of like guide so that we, again, don't get lost in things that we don't need to get lost in. At the end of the day, we're always going to learn something. At the end of the day, we always have the potential to grow. At the end of the day, anything can produce a lot of things. A lot of things can produce something, even if the something is that's an experience I know that I never want to have again, ever. That's something, right? So, anyway, what's at the bottom of the deck? The bottom of the deck is the Magus, divine powers of the material spirit, and it's the Vitruvian Magus. Or it's the Revelations Magus. Oh, look, there's a snake. I had the thought to look before and after the first three cards with snakes that I see because the year of the snake is closing, but we're going to get a clean flip or a clean fall. Cutting to the shining gale, winds of the Zephyr, or winds of the Sylph, which is that Knight of Swords energy. Oof. All right. Clean flip or clean fall. I'm going to, immediately. The first one that came out is the Magus. Bottom of the bottom of the deck is the Holy See. This is the Hierophant in the Vitruvian edition. Behind the Holy See at the bottom of the deck is the Sacred Cinnabar, Ace of Swords, with the Demiurge behind that. So it's almost like seeing, and again, I guess with that friends and family of the veil, it's seeing beyond the pomp of like the pulpit to the truth of the material. And it's like seeing, you could say the truth of the natural world not necessarily being purely nature, the natural world being the truth of the truth of the creation. And especially with the Holy See there. Oh, I meant to timestamp this. Especially with the Holy See there. I never timestamped the last one. I never went back and fixed it. Oh well. This is your reminder that timestamps on this channel are approximations. Because sometimes I go back, sometimes I don't. We'll say what, 27 minutes. But that's the thing about some hierophantic energies. And it's interesting because I saw a show. I was like trying to think of what show it was. I saw a show recently where in the show it's an isekai, which means that someone from roughly our version of Earth goes to a fantastical world. And in this fantastical world, there are gods in that fantastical world. And one of them is like a god of the forests or something like that. And the elves sort of fall under the protection and dominion of that god. Oh, I was also going to talk about dominance being the whatever the word was from the Zugma, and how dominance is interesting because there are some things that maybe can be dominated and some things that good luck, right? Anyway, the god of the elves left a message for them to like help them not make a mistake and believe that they were cursed or whatever, but they like completely misinterpreted it. And so they were thinking it was one thing instead of another. And then after they're reunited, the god is like, well, I left y'all a message. Like, hello? Like, I left y'all the revelation. I made it pretty plain. And they were like, oh, like, we didn't know that that's what you were talking about. So, like, the Ace of Swords behind the Hierophant is to see the truth of things sort of like as they are in the natural world, as everything was created, versus the sort of like world that the Hierophant built up. But it's like someone else's interpretation of a sign, symbol, synchronicity, or word, and living by their interpretation, because it can put the burden of interpretation on someone else, but at the same time, since we all have access to the divine, it gets tricky. Yeah, I guess I'm gonna go for it. So I'm gonna look through all of these from the bottom to the top to before and after the mages. And then I'm going to put the mages back in the deck. Oh, the grotesque is here. So recently, speaking of friends and family of the veil, this is like another thought. There are so many things that come like afterwards. In the reading with the mask, so that had to be when I used that was the robot. Fanuel Angel of Truth. When it came to dominance, that was another thing. When it came to the entry for dominance, and I don't know if I clocked it when I read it from the book. This is the book. This is me reading it. I guess it's four. Four is the emperor, and it's dominance. It works. When I was reading it from the book, it mentioned like know your place, sit on your throne. And I don't think I clocked that we had just seen Fanuel. No, that was the same reading. That was the same. It's different because that was with the dragons, and that was like the last reading I did. I think it could have been the same reading, but when it came out, I don't think I clocked that dominance said no. It was different because I didn't do the Zugma when I went looking for Fanuel. Fanuel. Like I wanted to do the Zugma, but the thing came out the way it came out, and then the next reading I did the Zugma. So when the Zugma actually came out, I didn't clock, and this is clocking, I guess, because you cut out the BS and you connect the truth. I don't know. Anyway, um, because dominance read from the book like know your place, sit on your throne. Fanuel is the angel that waits at the throne. And I was like, afterwards, I was like, oh, that's the same throne. The throne that the throw or the shawl or the whatever of the robot reminded me of. Anyway. Oh, yeah. There was the mask and the grotesque, and with the cards that came out, I was like, there's something about it was like a familiarity. And I was like, there's something about the inner, like if you have something characteristic like a limp or a very distinct laugh or something like that, if you go to a masquerade ball, a mask will not hide that. And I didn't think until after I made the Fanuel connection with the throne that the grotesque in the Five of Cups here, this is the thing that makes us special, unique, recognizable that we often sort of hide because it alienates, isolates, it makes us stand out and we want to fit in. So then when I was like, oh, because like a limp or a very distinct laugh or something like that is something that we would try to compensate for and hide so that we don't stand out. But again, that's the very thing that makes us recognizable by the divine. And I was like, oh, girl. Because at first I was like, I don't really want to lean into this when it comes to the metaphor, but it ended up working out. But again, it wasn't something that I necessarily clocked in the moment, but after when I was like thinking about it, not really thinking about it, it was just kind of on my mind. I was like, oh yeah. So anyway, and then oh, that's between the Ivory Shield and the Archangel Commander. The Archangel Commander, especially in this deck, is the one that teaches us to wield the sword after it tasks us with finding it. The Ivory Shield is my BTFU STFU Mind Your Business Queen. She's the guardian of sacred spaces in this deck for me. So flanking this card of what we try to hide because it isolates us or makes us stand out, but it is our very connection to the divine. Behind the shield of sacred places and in front of the instructor. That's the sword that the Archangel Commander teaches us to wield. That's protected by the Ivory Shield. Love that energy. Behind that is the dynasty, and we see the sun, the moon, and the void that holds life. Friends and family of the void of the veil, anyway. Cool. That's something else I was going to mention, but forgot. I'm looking for that Magus. If this is at the bottom or the top of the deck, because I'm looking from the bottom, for the Vitruvian Magus or the Revelations. Yeah, the Vitruvian Magus said that. Then I kind of wanted to look before and after the Emperor and the Chancellor, since the Chancellor is an advisor to the Emperor. But obviously, that's not happening, or at least not right now. This is a lot of cards to look through. Excuse me. So, for reference, this is the Hunt in the Vitruvian edition. Again, here we don't see the woman with the torch that illuminates that space like we did when the Hunt was at the cut with the demon. So, love that we got that illumination. And so, maybe, like, in addition to peeking behind the veil of the world at large and the goings on of the world at large, we were also to peek behind like the veil of ourselves or our own veil, right? To illuminate the stuff that like we carry or believe, and to give us the opportunity to amend or affirm. I'm like this far into the deck, this much. I'm still looking for this. What I love about the Magician being closer to the top of the deck is if the top of the deck is the gross physical or conscious, and the bottom of the deck is the subtle, immaterial, ethereal, or subconscious, we have a more conscious working understanding of whatever this is. We're like getting proper into the top of this deck. And I'm fairly certain I have not overlooked it. I really, really, really hope I did not overlook it. Oh my gosh, I went through all these cards and I haven't seen it. I'm looking for the mages. Okay. Now I'm going back from the top. Should I shuffle it? No. No. So from the top, I'm going back to the bottom. What is so in the Fool's Journey, which is the suit? I want to say the suit of the major arcana. The Fool starts at the Magician and it goes to the world. And after the Fool gets to the world, he kind of starts all over, but re-enters the world with an understanding of everything that it's learned and gained along the way the first time. But now you can say it can show up in a more like present way. Again, if we've peered behind not only the veil of things around us, but also behind our own veils, where we know not only our motivations and reasons why we do whatever and how we got to wherever we are, but we also see the same externally. Now we can navigate in ways that honor that knowledge and understanding. Honoring the knowledge and understanding may be that you play into the motivation, honoring the knowledge and motivation, honoring the knowledge may be having a more active part in defying something, right? So, for example, if we know that because, like, maybe we've discovered how timid we really are, or we've sort of had a deep dive into the reasons why, maybe in larger sort of gatherings or in like public speaking, like where that fear comes from or where that aversion comes from, right? So then with like, because I already went, because again, the magician is the first one. Since I already went from the bottom to the top of the deck, now that I'm going from the top back to the bottom, we can go, okay, this is something that I know about myself. And I know I'm this way because of this experience or this set of experiences, or because this is how I generally feel, blah, 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 whatever. I can choose to like defy that and do this thing anyway. You know what I mean? And sometimes when we defy it, we create new habits, patterns, neural pathways. And that goes to the TED talk from Dr. Trillian. I think she's a doctor. Dr. Trillian. I forget her last name. I shared it. That was the video I was looking for, by the way. I remembered her name. I was like, I think it was like Trillion. And then when I put in Trillion TED Talk, she popped up. Either we can start to build new experiences to change the narrative, or we can just like operate outside of it when we need to or when we want to, right? But the power is in our hands. And so, with the Ace of Swords being behind that Hierophant, we get to take the pen and write the story. But yeah. Is this it? No, that's the Force. Oh, there's the Four of Wands. The Four of Wands, as like I literally get done talking about that, is in between the healer in the full color edition, and strength. So this is the star, Aquarius. This is Leo. This is the Leo Aquarius axis, and that's where the Four of Wands sits, the power to write your own story. This same power that used to be behind a truth that the Hierophant held, but since we've discovered and taken on and digested that truth, now it's a power that we hold. And that creates healing opportunities that may not have necessarily existed or been possible before, in general, the year of the snake, before this knowledge and awareness sort of came to mind, right? Because there is a difference between what one says and what one does. And there's also a difference between, like, sort of in the way where I asked Gemini if you could be candid but not authentic. And Gemini was like, yeah, just because someone is being candid doesn't necessarily mean that they're also being authentic, right? And so then it's like, oh, it could be like maybe one thing was said, but the truth sort of like comes out. And if I still can't find this magician, I hope I don't have to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I'm the image that was in some card recently. I don't remember the card exactly. But it had like those four balls of white light, or the four balls of unaspected, raw, etheric energy, not elemental energy because it was unaspected. So I'll say etheric energy. Like that's almost given this like back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, right? So maybe there is like, so the Fool, major arcana from the magician to the world, but it's like maybe it goes from the magician to the world, or from wherever we start to the world, and like mentally, emotionally, and physically. Because it's like you can do it physically, mentally, emotionally, and or spiritually. And when you do three of them it, like the efforts compile, compound, and express in the fourth, right? Four elements, three are the tria prima. So typically, the elements are salt, earth for the body, sulfur, fire for the soul, and air for the mind. Mercury, air or mercury for the mind. And then there's like water is the odd one out, right? But yeah, that's why I was like, is this going to go back and forth and back and forth? Like, are we going to have to make 4 trips total? Hopefully not. But I guess if that's what it takes, then I will continue and I will point things out along the way. Now, it would be hilarious if this card isn't even in the deck. Did it fall somewhere? And I got to make sure they're not sticking. I remember this run of cards. And I know it's sepia. So if I see colors, I already know that that's not the card I'm looking for. Girl. So these are the cards from the top. This is what's left at the bottom. Is this the Magus? The Magus is right here. This is how far the Magus is from the bottom. So I actually kind of love that. And it's given real 7 energy. We did see the 7 of realms. Sometimes I try to be cognizant of how referential I am to energies that have already come out. Because it's like, is this just like I've seen the card before? Or is it truly like, and of course I like to think that it's truly like the energy. But anyway, what I like about that is we had to work from the bottom to the top. It's almost like we had to work from the bottom to the top to get an understanding. And now we have to make our way back to the bottom. Maybe like to see how widespread the roots of something grow. Right? So maybe when it comes to like again that fear of public speaking, maybe we tie it to something relatively recent or relatively overtly traumatic. But as we're like working on it, working through it and overcoming it, maybe we find that it has like subtler origins or deeper origins than the what we initially found. And then that triggers the working through of a lot of other things, right? I'm like trying to see what's around it. Okay, so I am going to put this, I mean, I can put it back after because I am going to give these another shuffle. I'm going to attempt another shuffle. So the Magus, Divinity in Man, Powers of Spirit. So first it was Divine Power of the Mortal Spirit. And then we see Divinity in Man, Powers of Spirit. So again, maybe in the first trip, it was this divine power of the mortal spirit. And maybe the divine power of the mortal spirit speaks more to what we aim to experience or achieve in life, or oof. 1 second, sorry. What we aim to experience or achieve in life. But again, it's like there's something about the application of that leads to something deeper. And the reason why I say it's a 7 or a 7 energy is because it's like the first trip was the breakthrough. the first trip was like, oh, there's more to the world than I realized. And it's this like profound yet elementary realization. But then it's like when you actually get into it, it gets a lot deeper. Or that was just like the tip of the iceberg. Or the realization, the revelation is one thing, but how do you put that information into practice or into play in everyday life, in your daily life, or in a particular area that is like relevant to it or a desired area of relevancy, right? And so it goes from divine power of the mortal spirit being like your force of will going out and creating things or something that could be like that to divinity in man, powers of the spirit. So rather than your particular mortal spirit or a mortal spirit in general, because this is of the mortal spirit, it's like powers of the spirit. And no, I haven't cut my nails yet. I know. I mean, obviously, I haven't cut them yet. Powers of the spirit, but with this divinity in man, it's like the spirit is within you. So maybe that's the difference. The difference between the powers of, but that almost gives me the energy that came out with the mystical shaman and the mystical shaman oracle, right? It's the difference between like the power of your eternal spirit versus the power of the spirit that lives within you, or vice versa. Not necessarily vice versa, but it also, like, because we saw like the King of, it may have been the King of Wands and the Emperor when that came out. There's also been this thread of like not only recognizing how much you contribute to whatever, but like when it comes to authority and like with dominance, the Zugma of dominance, um, it's like knowing on whose authority or by what authority certain things are done or professed or proclaimed or whatever, right? It kind of goes back to that. And it does make me think of when we saw the mystical shaman, and it was like, there's two sets of footprints in the sand, and then there's one set. And typically, the one set of footprints is the set of the divine that carries you. But in the case of the mystical shaman, the one set of footprints is the footprints of the mystical shaman because the divine lives within the mystical shaman. They've integrated in that way. So rather than being carried by the divine lives within the mystical shaman. And that's what this divinity in man, powers of the spirit, sort of evokes more of the divine, more so than the divine powers of the mortal spirit. Anyway, oh, interesting. It's between the Ace of Scepters, the Awakening, and the Champion. So either there was the Awakening and then the Champion, or the Champion and then the Awakening. Because we had to go from the bottom to the top and back basically down to the bottom. It's like maybe it went from the Champion to the Awakening back to the Champion. And I'm going to put this back just anywhere. I don't know why. I was seeing justice in this champion. And I don't know if it was like the glyph of Libra from the Chancellor. There's something about the Chancellor that, especially in this card, it was like in her lap or something. It just like flashed in my mind's eye. Now, this is a Seven of Wands energy, the Ace plus the Six, and we did see the Seven of Wands recently. I feel like we saw the Seven of Wands in the SKT Revelations edition with the energy behind it. But before that, we also saw it in another deck. I feel like it was in the Happy Tarot. And something about the Happy Tarot Seven of Wands was different than how I typically see it illustrated, or it just felt different. This one feels like a gift from the Year of the Snake. I was gonna say it feels like a gift more so than what's something for us to like a last minute before we go into the next year. What's like, you know what I mean? Something we could like work on a little bit more. Maybe that's what all three will be. First is the gift, then is like whatever. What's interesting about this is though, and I know I said I didn't want to assign. If I do assign connotations to one edition versus the other, I didn't want to particularly go and look for something because if it's not something that we're currently or actively working on, yes, it's down to the discernment of me since I'm the reader, or it's open to um not relevance, resonance, girl. I was thinking like relevance, resonance. Like wherever we resonate, that's where we sort of fall. But this is like victory today because of challenges that we overcame yesterday. And what's also interesting about this snake is this is not an Ouroboros. These are two different snakes. You can tell by their coloration. It feels like if we were just looking at that and assuming it was an Ouroboros, which is the loop, which is the spiral, we may mistake one thing for another. So maybe that's to say that, like, one, we can trust ourselves to not repeat certain things of the past that we've really done the work in working through and resolving. But it's almost this like just because something starts the same or looks the same on its face doesn't mean it's necessarily going to play out the same way because the ending of one thing is connected to the beginning of something else. Because of the one through the knee in this Six of Wands champion, this is like a victory that was not necessarily easily won. So it's almost like, maybe we didn't get through the Year of the Snake unscathed. It could be that in the process of shedding, there's something that we lost. But it's like there are so many things that the butterfly loses. There are so many things that the caterpillar loses when it becomes the butterfly that it may not necessarily know that it won't even need. And so, again, because we were reading, it just affirms that mystical shaman type energy. Um, because we went from the bottom to the top back to the bottom. What started as powers of the mortal spirit, then we learn is a power of spirit that we come back to the power of the spirit that lives within us, which is very much like greater is he that is in me than he that is within the world type energy. But it does hold its own sort of balance. So that's the first one. excuse me, and it feels like a gift because of where we are by the end of that. All right, so let's give this, I want to give it 2 attempts at a shuffle. Now we have the Knight of Cups at the cut with that holy sea that was at the bottom. The Shining Waters. For some reason, this Shining Waters, it's giving me the Six of Cups, Eight of Cups, sorry. It's giving me the Eight of Cups, particularly in the Fable Makers animated tarot. There's a lot of cards in the cup suit that sort of shine as you sort of reflect as you move the card. But it's that one in particular where you can see like the water moving and running. Now the bread of life is at the cut with that hierophant. Okay, all right. Let's from here. Oh, girl. Let's try that again. Oh, shuffling is rough. I'll give it one more. And then a cut. All right. Claim flip or claim fall for the second. Ooh. We got a claim fall and it fell face down. I'm actually going to honor this face down card in a way. 10140. We'll say face down. 10145, maybe. It could be like 102 by now. So what I'm going to do is see, but I can't necessarily do that. I was going to honor this. I'll just go with it because that was my first impression. So from the top of the deck, I'm going to keep going until I find one Revelations card in between 2 Vitruvian cards. It should be the opposite. But that's how I sort of saw it. 2 Vitruvians outside and the Revelations inside. Let's see if I can even find it. Oh, that was close. Oh, that was another close one. I had 2. Okay. I want. There it is. This is what I want. 1 Revelations between 2 Vitruvians. Or one Revelations between 2 Vitruvians. So this is where it is. Wait, I almost pulled it wrong. Almost pulled. There we go. This was the top. This was the bottom. And this time we'll take all 4. Bottom of the deck is the Erudite, which is Hermit of the Mysteries, Lux ex Tenebris, light from darkness or out of darkness, light. And it is the Hermit, which is Virgo. First, we saw the major arcana of Taurus. Then we saw the major arcana of Virgo. Now we see the major arcana of Virgo. How am I going to read these? I'm going to read the 2 cards, the 2 Vitruvians, and then the card that was in between, and then the one that came out on top. So we have the Archangel of Glory, Angel of Art and Grace with the Nocturne, 2 of Orbs. Now we've seen the Nocturne before. The Angel of Art and Grace with the Nocturne, this is giving like making the most out of a bad situation. It's like finding love in a hopeless place. It is reaching a resolution before we receive salvation, before we're taken out of a situation, before we're removed from a situation. We kind of like make our own peace with it. And it's something that's almost like it's almost an energy that's like there are certain things that can only be found through trials, tribulations, struggles, challenges, and stuff like that. And not just because it grounds us in our experience in a certain type of way. I've never seen the show. I don't even remember the show. I know it's not Moira from that one show. I saw like 2 episodes. You know, the show with the creek? And it's so funny because before I went live, I saw a clip on YouTube Shorts, I believe, of the guy from Shark Tank who bought Mustang, Texas. He bought a whole city and he made his friend like the mayor, right? And that's kind of like, in that show, the guy buys a city, his family falls on hard times, and then they have to move to the city that they bought. Why was I talking about that? I don't remember. I think I've already lost how we got there. How did we get there? I don't know. Oh yeah, because they were like out of touch. It's not her. It's another show. I don't remember the show, but I know the clip. There are several clips. Like some ladies like, how much can a single banana cost? $10 or something like that. It's like out of touch. And it's not necessarily it's almost like something about how the creative spirit thrives. There are many mothers of invention. In my mind, I can think of, I don't know the saying because I feel like there's like war is the mother of invention, but there's also necessity is the mother of invention. And I don't know which one is the proper whatever. And I don't, maybe that's also part of it. With the Two of Pentacles here, it's like we were more inspired to do something by necessity rather than like a more urgent potentially a more urgent sort of reason, right? So like not necessarily, it's almost like it's life and death because it's necessity. It could be like life, a matter of life and death in terms of survival, but survival being like, because I guess like when it comes to war there's also an element of survival, but it's like different, but in a lot of ways the same. And it's almost like not that war isn't what it used to be. It feels different when a war is in between or an argument. It doesn't have to be that big or some kind of struggle or challenge. Like it feels different when it's between two people who both need a resource or who both need something. Like that feels different than like one person coveting what someone else has or one person wanting something and the other person like already being there or like being in the way, right? Like when it comes to satisfying one's greed, that feels completely different than when it comes to like survival, right? And what one covets or wants or desires out of greed doesn't, it's just different than what someone like truly needs. And it feels like in the space of a true need, there's this like creativity. And it's almost like when it comes to needs and necessities, that reveals a lack or a deficiency in the foundational underlying structure of something. And when it comes to something like based off of greed, it's like, that would be nice, but what's his name? Maslow? Is it Maslow's hierarchy? And was what Machiavelli was, it's better to be feared than loved. Anyway, Machiavelli is not necessarily completely relevant. And I don't know, it's just like it's a kind of innovation that like moves the world forward. It's almost like isn't there the one guy who makes fuel question mark from like garbage or recycled like plastics or something like that? It's something like that. There's like it like the solution also solves a problem. Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's a solution. I mean, all solutions solve problems, but it's like a solution that solves multiple problems, right? So, for example, in the recycling, upcycling, or conversion of one thing to another, while you're creating something that you want, you're also eliminating something that you don't want that's taking up space. It's solving two problems. So that's flanking the memory keeper, the Six of Cups. We saw this one recently. This card, yeah. Ooh, why do I feel suddenly emotional? I get so emotional. It's this feels like, and see, this is the reason why I said it's different but the same. From the perspective of the greedy, it's completely different. From the perspective of those in need, there's a lot of overlap. Um, but with this memory keeper, it's almost like the way that things should have been. Ooh, there's the emotion again. Oh gosh, it's strong. Right, because it's like someone was crafty, someone was creative. And it could be two people, it could be one person. But it's just like when someone exits necessity, when someone leaves a life of needing but not having, and they get like comfortable, and then they get like when they make it, it's almost like this is how life should have always been. And either it's like one person telling another or two people telling each other, or it's like the divine that comes in after someone overcomes something, and it's like the realization that that person has, that's like this is how life should have always been, because there are certain experiences that no one should have to have, that a lot of people do. Now what this is clarifying is the journeyman, Eight of Orbs, because these are like in the clouds and they feel ancestral, or like the spirit of someone who's like passed on. This is very much so like It's like there was supposed to be protections in place. There was supposed to be like a responsible, caring, loving adult that was in the picture. And like there are certain things that a child should never have to go through or experience, but that a lot of children do every day, more than we see, more than we are informed of, more than we know. And they're not all halfway across the world, right? And it's almost like there's an attitude here. Why this is coming up with like the snake, I don't know. It's almost like there's an attitude here of like easily dismissing, especially when it comes to the greedy or the insatiable. I mean, greedy and insatiable are basically the same. It's like there's a dismissal of that, like ingenuity in creativity. And there's this, like, I guess this is where we are. There's like this dismissal and this looking down on someone or something, almost for like being in a situation in the first place, one that's not within their control. And it's like very sort of like dismissive, but so maybe for someone who may watch this and may resonate in some way, like let's say that you were in a place of need or where you were lacking or missing something that you were not unreasonable for like wanting. Right? If you're hungry, it's not unreasonable to want to be fed or to want to be full. If you're thirsty, it's not unreasonable to wish that you weren't thirsty. If you want a $50 million whatever, it's more gray. Like you, especially if it's like it's not a necessity, like you don't need it to survive. You're not going to die without it. You like, there's a difference, right? And it's almost like your ingenuity and creativity and determination. It's like all of these things that are like really positive qualities about a person to have gone through what they've gone through, that either they can be looked down on for having been in whatever situation, or they may project or assume that other people look down on them because of the situation they came out of or were born into or whatever found themselves in they came out of. Like it doesn't, it's almost like that would be focusing on the wrong thing. Being in the situation in the first place, like what you had to do to get out of it, or what it was like when you were in it, especially if you're coming out of it or out of it, it's like to focus on that and to have those be your descriptors or the qualifiers of your narrative. It's like you're focusing on the wrong thing, because it's more so about the determination, the ingenuity and creativity, the drive and the will to change one's circumstances. And it's very much so that energy of like, I was, I was gonna say it's the energy of like not looking like what you've gone through. But even if you do look like what you've gone through, you're out of it. You know what I mean? So it's But yeah, it's almost like it's like when you see a flower that blooms in the cracks of concrete, you almost can't help but marvel at nature or life's ability to blossom, bloom, grow, maybe even thrive despite the environment or the circumstances or whatever. And it's like the same way you'd appreciate the beauty and strength of the flower that grew out of that crack. Like, you could or should have the option to appreciate about yourself. And again, it's like that's not a disqualifier, or it's not a disqualifier of your future and what you have yet to experience. And it's not a qualifier of who you are as a person in terms of like that time, those times don't define you. They do in the terms of like what you've overcome, but not in the sense of like that's your identity for all of your life or the rest of your life, especially if things have changed. Yeah. And everything is here except for air. We got the two and the eight of pentacles, giving the 10 of pentacles, which is an energy of legacy. We have the king of wands, who is very like passionate, driven, who it's like if he has a vision, it will come to life. And then you have the six of cups, which is about, you could say it's about like roots. But again, like the entirety of the plant is not in its roots. The roots are very important to the overall survival of the plant for various reasons. Not only do they help provide precious water, right? Plants take up water through their roots, but they also anchor the plant so that if anything comes along, be it wind or beast, it's not going to just like blow away. But there's no air here. And again, the air almost feels like that's where like this battle of the mind sort of is, where maybe sometimes we can look at ourselves sort of negatively because we are where we are, we were where we were, or we went through what we've gone through. But again, it's this energy of like that would be focusing on the wrong thing. Because what's really important or indicative of someone as a person, it's more so because it's like someone could be who they are regardless of where they start, where they end, and what happens in the middle. Right? It's like the truth of someone isn't necessarily so circumstantial. There are truths that can be revealed by circumstances. And if that's the case, what circumstances revealed about you are again ingenuity, creativity, determination, stuff like that. Like those are the important things. That's what should be focused on. Should be because you make your own choices and decisions, and what I do like. Oh, Lux Ex Tenebris. X is that's the same as an exit. Um, in Latin, there are a few words, just like Spanish, it carries through in Spanish, where you have like it may carry through in Spanish. I mean, like in English, we have like to and from, right? And ex is like an exit. It's like something from something or out of something else. So lux ex tenebris, light out of, light from the darkness, right? The darkness being that may be painful, traumatic, challenging experience, but from that was the light. From that is the flower that grows. And then we have the Eight of Swords with the lunar eclipse there. I gotta look at the lunar eclipses. So March 3rd, 2026 is a full moon lunar eclipse, which means that the solar eclipse is that the new moon? So I think Reem mentioned it in one of her videos recently. And I was like, is that a solar eclipse? I didn't even know. Not the total solar eclipse that's going to happen August 12th, but the one before that. I got to go to the restroom. I'm going to go to the restroom real quick. I'll be right back because it's hitting. So, yeah, the apparently the year of the fire horse is going to start with the solar eclipse. Um, it also mentioned the August 12th solar eclipse, the total solar eclipse, and that path of totality is very interesting, especially coming off of this. If you want to look up the path of totality for the August 2026 so total solar eclipse, feel free. Anyway, and then behind that is the Archangel of Mysteries, angel who illuminates the shadow. So we have the Hermit of the Mysteries and the Archangel of Mysteries. As the angel who illuminates the shadow, that's what a lunar eclipse is. Basically, from my incomplete and simplified, probably overly simplified understanding, and how I'm going to paraphrase, I was going to say explain, but how I'm going to share the full moon, blood moon, lunar eclipse is what happens when the moon, illuminated by the sun, passes through the Earth's shadow. So it is kind of the only time that we get to see the shadow of the earth. We see the shadow of things on the earth, like trees and buildings and people, but that's when the moon passes through the shadow of earth itself. Now, is this coming up? Did this already happen? That one is going to be, I should have looked up the lunar eclipses too. That one is going to be in Pisces. So that'll be a full moon Virgo lunar eclipse. And I don't know. Let's do it. I don't know if the second one will be Aquarius Leo or if it'll also be lunar eclipses 2026 or if it'll be Pisces Virgo as well. August 28th. So August 28th is also Virgo. Solar and lunar eclipses 2026 worldwide. Easier than what I was doing. Feb 17th is the annular solar eclipse. March 2nd to 3rd is the lunar total eclipse. The total solar eclipse, August 12th, and then August 27, 28, a partial lunar eclipse. So the only one that happens on the Aquarius Leo axis is the total solar eclipse on August 12th, which will be a new moon Leo. We saw the Force and the Star. I don't remember what card was in between the Force and the Healer, but we did see them. 3 of them will be on the Pisces Virgo axis, which is where the nodes are. The total, which again, that whole path of totality, that one is where the nodes are going to be because they're shifting from Pisces North Node, South Node, Virgo to Aquarius North Node, South Node, Leo. The nodes transit retrograde through the zodiac wheel. They're the only things that transit retrograde. Everything else is prograde. And then they retrograde some of them periodically. Right? The moon doesn't retrograde. The sun doesn't retrograde. Everything else does and can. Anyway, sorry. Cool. So yeah, it feels like that's this one. And what I love about this is because there was something about the first one that was feeling like the energy of a 7 or was built upon the energy of a 7, and it was the 7 of Pentacles, the 7 of Realms, because the 7 of Realms, the 4 of Realms, Aquarius came out, and then it was the Empress, something else, Earth, maybe Fire Girl, that whole thing. When I use the screen, then the Queen of Coins is like on the screen in the box in the thumbnail. At the 8, it's like working towards mastery. It's like an adept that is working towards mastery. The 7 is like an apprentice that's working to be an adept. Cool. All right. And then, who is this at the top of the deck? Top of the deck is the Archangel of Healing. So it's interesting that I just mentioned it was between the Healer and the Force. And this is the Archangel of Healing. And then there is Libra, the Chancellor. I think it was the Ankh. It was the Ankh behind the Chancellor that I almost saw in that 6 of Wands champion. When I was like, there's something about this that's giving me like a Chancellor Justice energy. Cool. That's the second. And then let's get the third. Here's the Empress. Speak of the Ankh, and the Empress will appear. It's in her necktie. Or not a necktie. There it is. Also, I feel like we saw the Emperor. the Empress gives the to the Emperor, bestows it to him, entrusts it with the Emperor. Ooh. It's interesting. The Hollow Void was at the cut with that Empress, because again, in the Dynasty, the Ten of Pentacles, in both editions of the SKT, where there is supposed to be a void in the Kabbalah Tree of Life, there is life, there is growth. So, friends and family of the Veil, I guess. Sure, why not? We'll do one. I want to do 3 this time. Because the Empress? Sure, why not? That's 2. 3, and a cut. All right. Clean flip or clean fall. Ooh, oh, okay. There was an almost fall that resulted in a clean flip. We get 2 cards, the 6 of Pentacles and the 6 of Swords. And I think the title card also flipped over. I think so. And I think that because I have the title cards face up in the deck, because I don't reveal the faces of the title card in the SKT. In particular, this is the only deck I think where I don't reveal their faces, but the card backs are different. So, for example, this is a card back from the. These are card backs from the Vitruvian, editions. The title card is colored differently, so I show this. I don't show the other side. And usually because of that, I have those cards face up when everything else is face down. Because if I'm flipping through the cards and showing you, that way you'll see the back of the card rather than its face as I'm showing the other faces. Right. So that's why I'm like, I'm pretty sure this one also flipped over because it would have been face up and I'm seeing the back of it. As I go through this lengthy explanation before I even timestamp. So I guess I'll just start the timestamp here. And we have 3 cards. We have the Giver and the Ferryman. I'll just say the last 3. Or should I put them all? I'll just put them all. Title card, the Giver, and the Ferryman. I love this is where we end it. Because, again, it's like it carries us into whatever comes next. 137 with the understanding, I'll say 137.30, that we are prepared for it. Interesting. So wait, am I looking before and after every single one of these? That's how we're doing it. I said that's how we're going to do it, so that's how we're doing it. Now, the Giver and the Ferryman. So these are the 3 that came out. Now, this is interesting. 6 of Swords, 6 of Pentacles. The 6 of Wands is already on the table in this same deck. And the 6 of Cups is on the table in the other deck. So we have all 6 of them. 6 of Swords. But this, oh my gosh, this is literally what I was talking about with the Magician, right? As the Magician goes like back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I was like, it's like, because there are 4 elements in the Tria Prima. There are 3 out of the 4 elements are involved in the Tria Prima. All 3 associated with the standard, what I view of, or what I know of, what I think to be the standard because of what I've come across. Which, just saying, I could be off the mark, girl. If you know the real tea and I'm just scratching the surface because that's what I can find, then hey, girl, you know the real tea. Anyway, we have the air, the mercury of the mind, the earth, the salt of the body, and the fire, the sulfur of the spirit. And then water is like that element of transcendence. And These three are in the sepia toned Vitruvian edition, and the element of transcendence is in the Revelations edition in full color. It comes to life when we sort of like see the whole picture. Right. Cool. Interesting. And I did mention that earlier when the magician came out. So here we go. But it's with the title card. So I feel like there's something there. In a way, this title card occupies the space of the Six of Cups in this edition. But where we actually see the Six of Cups is in full color in the other edition. So again, it's almost like beyond the whole, or playing into that whole element of transcendence piece. It's almost like something that is unknowable. When either when we first encountered it, or it's unknowable for the caterpillar, right? Because the snake, in the year of the snake, it's been shedding, right? What also is interesting about this is we've seen here in this Magus magician that these are two different snakes. In the sepia toned version of this card, they would look like, we could easily assume that it's a Ouroboros energy because the like it's all sepia toned. They would appear to be the same color. But in full color, in the realm of transcendence, where we see the Six of Cups, which was the middle sort of clarifying card, when it's in full color, when we can see the past plainly, we notice again, like, oh, this, like, we're not repeating the same cycle. If just because we aren't who we were, even if that's the only thing that's changed, you could say that's the most important thing. So again, with this title card, it's like it was maybe more so than unknowable. It's something that we couldn't have received. The giver gives, we receive. This comes after the Six of Swords. We are working, we're journeying our journey, we're living our life in a certain type of way. There's something that's maybe trying to be revealed to us, and maybe until recently or until this past year, we haven't really been able to see it. And it feels like this hand of the divine like kept dropping something, and for whatever reason, like we never saw it, or even if we picked it up, it's like we may not have been capable of realizing the whole truth of, or the full truth of what it is we were seeing. And maybe that's because we were still like low hanging fruit. It's like something that we couldn't believe because of how it would change the narrative and what we needed the narrative to be. Right. So, for example, if we have to see all, that's a terrible example. It's fine. I'll just leave it as it is. It's again, it's almost like there's something that we were either not ready or incapable of seeing the truth of. And it's not until, but that also plays into the energy where that Six of Cups came out. And again, it was that whole like we're focusing on the wrong thing. In that metaphor, story, example, it's like we are defining ourselves by the situations we are either in or the situations that we've been in. And we're almost like shaming ourselves for having been in those situations rather than acknowledging, admiring, and appreciating the courage, determination, willfulness, resistance, love, passion, whatever. And it's like those things should be the true qualifiers or definers of our character. And again, it's like this is the truth of us, maybe that we wouldn't have been able to see while we were only viewing ourselves through that negative light. We only saw the challenge, we didn't see our strength. The Six of Wands. We only saw like the pain, but we didn't see. And she's sitting on a throne. Did I not? Heads came out and I talked about it. I'm pretty sure. Maybe I talked about something else. But Phanuel is the angel that sits, the angel of truth that sits beside the throne, waiting for the day that we take our seat upon it. In the card of dominance, know your place, and your place is on the throne. But it's like we found the throne, but we focus on the pain rather than what we've overcome. And that came out first. And so, yeah, anyway, something that a truth that we would not have been able to see. But even though we couldn't fully realize, comprehend, or understand that truth at the time, it did not stop us from like taking the journey that we needed to. And when it came to the sparkling water, the shining waters, I was like, why was I thinking of sparkling water? And it's also interesting. Here's a little before the live hours ago, little wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I went to Dunkin' with my number one fan earlier. She got a lemonade refresher, but she was like, can you taste this? It tastes like they put sparkling water in my refresher instead of the lemonade. And I was like, I mean, I was like pizza and coffee and but I was like, that definitely don't taste like lemonade. Sparkling water, shining waters. This is another card where you see the water sparkle and shine in the Fable Maker's Animated Tarot, which I do have right here. I had to move this to get to the SKT, but I'm not going to pull it. It's fine. I could pull up the other screen and just click, 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 click until it hopefully comes up. That's what we're going to do, girl. Let's do it. I just need to open up this program. Am I going to do both or am I just going to do that? Now, technically, I could just do that. And I might. So I need to run. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Rather than pulling before and after all three of these, I may do both, but I'm going to do this first. Anyway, there's a little sparkling water sink. It also sparkles in the Six of Swords, but what came to mind was the Eight of Cups when the sparkling waters was at the cut. So I'm going to open the Fable deck M program. I'm going to run it to open the little app. And then we're going to come over here to this scene. And I'm going to hide this window capture. We're going to show this one. I'm still waiting for the window to pop up. It's like connecting. I didn't give it time. I just like open up the program and immediately click play. I clicked run. There we go. And this is collection is the name of this window. Oh, it's already there. You already see it. Nice. I may have to move it because it looks like it may be a little cut off, but maybe not. Yeah, it is. Oh, look, it's the same green. Cool. Apparently, we're all green today. Not green with envy, because who has time for that? Who has time for? I mean, I guess you could. I was gonna say, who has time for envy when you're like trying to sort out your own stuff? But I guess it can be easier to envy someone else. The crazy thing about envy, especially when it comes to like envying where someone else is in life, is oftentimes we don't know what they go through or suffer with behind closed doors, for one, and we don't know what they did to get where they are, for two, with some folks. And it's almost like if you knew the real, like the full story, you may think twice before you really envy that person, because do you want to go through what they went through? And maybe, again, that's kind of sort of what we talked about in the last one. Maybe, and we started with the Six of Wands. Again, it's like from the outside, and maybe this plays into it as well. From your perspective, you see the one that pierces your thigh. You see the pain that you've gone through and the challenges that you've overcome. But someone else that sees you sitting on your throne, they're envying your position, your seat on the throne, not noticing, seeing how that scepter that you hold actually like pierces your thigh, pierced your thigh. Anyway, that's not. We don't have to go there. So I'm gonna switch this to 3. I don't need the text boxes, but I guess I will I'll type in the boxes. This is the title card. This is the giver. 6. Oops. Oh, girl. My nails make it a little hard to. Orbs. Type. Title card. Vitruvian. Is there spell check? Nope. I might have to code it with spell check, but honestly, I don't even know if I care to. And then the Ferryman. 6 of swords. I unmuted this right. I'm pretty sure I did. Cool. So now y'all can see. And this is the part where we leave it up to luck. I'm going to keep shuffling until the 6 of until I'm going to keep shuffling until we see sparkling water. I was going to say I'm going to keep shuffling until the 6 of swords, but I also could have kept until the 8 of cups. You also see sparkling, so I'm just going to keep shuffling until we see sparkling water, and wherever the cards fall, that's what they're going to modify or clarify, even though they're kind of sort of all read as one. All right, so let's go. No sparkling water. There technically is sparkling water in the 4 of chalices, but I'm looking for running water. Does the water in the Queen of Coins sparkle? Now, she has water, but it's not sparkling, as far as I can see. Does nope. Oh, while there is movement in the water of the moon card, it does not sparkle. So we will continue. Now there is plenty of water in the 2 of Pentacles, but again, not sparkling. 6 of Swords, not sparkling. The swords are sparkling. Actually, there are sparkles in the background. You can't see my mouse because I don't have cursor tracking on. But in the very back of the 6 of Swords, can you really see it? I'm going to blow this up so you can more clearly see it. And then I guess I'm going to try to get it back down to its proper size. But in the very back, under the sun, it does sparkle. You see that? Now you see it. I'm pretty sure you see it. It's like not the sparkling I was necessarily looking for. There you go. But I think that counts as a sparkle. Let's see. I kind of wish I could take a vote. Does this count as sparkling? You see right under the sun? I feel like I should more so make a judgment call than, well, because if I look at the water and that 10 of swords right next to it, no, I was going to say it's sparkling, but I won't. with the Ten of Swords as a comparison. That's something I didn't notice until now. So we're going to go again. Oops, I'm clicking like all the wrong windows, by the way. I wish I would have just like wrote down the measurements so I could not have to manually resize this. I could just tip tap. I can just tippy tap. Okay. We're going to shuffle one more. Actually, I can move this down and make this a little bigger because you don't need to see all that extra green space, right? Don't want to cut the Empress off though. Cool. I just gotta like. All right. Close call, close but no cigar. Due to a technicality clarified by the Ten of Swords right next to it, that Six of Swords will not qualify as sparkling waters. The Knight of Cups has sparkling water. So that's what I mean by sparkling water. And it's funny that we also see the Two of Coins because I mentioned that how it has plenty of water, but it doesn't sparkle. Also, the Two of Coins is the Nocturne. The Nocturne is literally on the table next to, let me go back so I can see me, literally on the table next to the Six of Cups. So we see them in reverse order. Here. So when it was this way, there was the Archangel Commander, in the space of the King of Wands. And so what was on this side wasn't seen. Anyway. Oh, the Knight of Cups is literally the Shining Waters. That's why I'm looking for the Shining Waters in the first place. And then the Shining Waters Knight of Cups shows up. Now, what's interesting is because of the Six of Chalices that sits on the space of the Six of Orbs, where both the Nocturne, Two of Coins, and the Six of Cups, both of those were from the last one. These bring in that energy, but also the Shining Waters that came out before. Now, in that Six of Cups, we see air, moving air. We see waves. In the Two of Pentacles. And in the Knight of Chalices, we have that sparkling water, but it's still, it's not moving. It moves in the other cards, you can tell, like in the Eight of Cups. It's also interesting that the Two of Coins sits on that title card. Also, we saw the Eight of Swords. The Eight of Swords, the captor, was at the bottom of the deck somewhere. And we saw the lunar eclipse, right? And it's the whole thing of like, because it was with the angel who illuminates the shadow. The only time we see Earth's shadow is when there's a lunar eclipse. But the force that moves the tides is the moon. So just like we see that dance between the two pentacles happening in that lemniscate infinity shape, it's like that's one of the forces of the moon. There was also, like, we saw the moon. I was like, there's plenty of water in the moon, but I wouldn't say that sparkles. The moon being what illuminates the dark. And again, there's something about that tidal force being what we don't necessarily see. The wind is an unseen force, but we feel it. We can feel the wind move as we see things blow in it. We can see, you could say, I was going to say we can see the waves, but we don't necessarily feel that tidal pool in the same way that we feel the wind. And you could say that, but at the same time, you could also say that the moon has an effect on our moods because we're composed of a significant amount of water, right? So, who's to say that the same way the moon affects the tides, it doesn't also affect us in the same way? A lot of people, some people say it does affect us in the same way. But to know how the moon affects us, it's like there's a level of cognizance that is necessary. My brain just kind of, because I was going to say another word besides cognizance. Anyway, it's like, I feel like sometimes maybe we say or think or feel that we are acting out of character, but we may not even necessarily know what our character is, right? And that almost goes back to the circumstance and situationality of the face down card. But it's like when we're deeply in tune with ourselves and when we are more aware of ourselves, then we can better judge, evaluate, or discern when we're behaving like differently. Because otherwise, we could just be like having a reaction to something, or we could be operating in one of our patterns, right? The Six of Cups clarifies the giver. I wrote it all here so I don't have to look at the cards, but I am. The Knight of Cups clarifies the Ferryman. It's interesting that they came out this way too, because not only is, well, the Ferryman is holding Universal Mercury, just like the Magician, the Magus. It feels like the Ferryman gives and we have to receive. But usually you pay your fare to the ferryman, right? It's either what, 2 coins on the eyes or a drachma under the tongue or in the mouth. I feel like I've seen both to pay care on. Um, and that's to pay him for his services as a cycle pump, as he ferries your soul from the land of the living, from the shores of the land of the living to the beyond. But again, with the ferryman and then the giver and then the title card, I guess this is the title card, the giver, and then the ferryman, but it feels like it's the ferryman, the giver, and then the title card. Because it is the giver and then the ferryman, and you would give the ferryman something. But not know like the price that was paid. Because that's where the title card sits. but it could read that way. But it feels like the ferryman gives something and maybe we don't, because again, I wouldn't necessarily expect, because you always pay the ferryman. The ferryman never pays you for having utilized their service. Apparently, like my friend was like, he banks in the UK and like his bank gave him money for banking with them. I was like, what? And then this other bank maybe had like a sign, like they give you money if you bank with them. And I've heard about that because I feel like when Cash App was first branching out into the, like you can use Cash App to get direct deposit or whatever. I feel like when they first branched out into that, there was like an incentive. And so I guess I've heard more so of incentives for people joining or switching to something more so than I've heard of incentives for people who stay. Anyway, this is it. It's just like, again, I didn't, it's like, what? The bank gives you money? What? You don't get, anyway. Maybe the ferryman gave something that we didn't understand. And again, that sits in the place of the two of orbs. Because we already, from the beginning, saw that what could be Ouroboros isn't actually. Again, this is a sort of Ouroboros energy, but this is also the sepia toned deck. It's almost very Wizard of Oz, where it's like the very first thing that Dorothy got in Oz was what she needed to get home. So, in the entirety of the journey, she's had the ability to go home. What came out face down was the journeyman. And again, in that card, there are tidal forces, which are lunar forces, that we don't feel in the same way that we feel the wind, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't have an effect on us. That whole Wizard of Oz thing is interesting because clarifying the giver, the Six of Orbs, is the Six of Chalices, meaning this is something that we would have had since we were children. Or you could say it's something that the inner child holds. And so, in reconnecting with our inner children, then we see, or that's what unveils or lifts the wool so that we can more clearly and plainly see the thing that we could never see before. And the Knight of Chalices with the Ferryman Six of Swords is so much of like, let your heart be your guide. Or like being guided by one's intuition or discernment. Because, Suit of Cups, this is also a collaboration between the heart and the mind, or between the intuition and one's logic. But because the Knight of Cups is a knight, it's primarily led by the heart or primarily led by one's intuition. So it's almost very like low hanging fruit for this is like someone that has a big heart, but maybe they've been taken advantage of in the past, or maybe they were giving in situations where it wasn't acknowledged or honored. And so they go like, why did the divine give me like such a big heart? Why was I created with such a big and caring heart and born into a world that is so cruel sometimes? And maybe it's something that, like, because again, with the Two of Pentacles, maybe at least for a while, it was seen as a burden or a source of pain. But it's like that big, beautiful heart is exactly the thing that is needed, required, necessary. It's exactly the thing that's going to get you where you're going. And again, with that grotesque Five of Orbs, maybe your big, beautiful heart and how pained you have been or are in certain situations gets you to kind of sort of like hide it away. Maybe you don't shut it down completely, maybe you just hide it away, right? And again, in the grotesque, the Five of Cups, when it came to the mask and the other deck from the other day, like that big, beautiful heart is how the divine sees, knows, and recognizes you, even through the veil. That is what is divine about and within you. But because the world is what it is, maybe that's what you've grown again to sort of like hide. And maybe it's almost like with a heart like yours, you were always going to suffer, but it's like it doesn't have to be, it's like it doesn't have to be negative. What is a positive suffering? It's like, let's say, for example, everything isn't super like crazy, right? Let's say that someone is like, for example, there is someone who is in love with someone else, right? And they go to you with your big, beautiful heart, and the person is like, you know, maybe it's a recent discovery, maybe there comes a time to take a relationship to the next level or to make someone's feelings known. And maybe there's a lot of anxiety that the person feels as they come to you. And with your big, beautiful heart, you can feel like their anxiety, or you can feel their worry of like, well, what if the feelings aren't reciprocated? Or what if like this ruins the relationship and we're not even friends anymore? Blah, blah, blah. It's like you can also sort of feel that. And so it's like, even in that way, you were always going to feel some kind of pain. But in that case, it feels like pain isn't the correct word, but it's the closest. But so, in a similar way, or in a similar vein, it's almost very like, while in the case where this is something given to the inner child or something that the inner child holds, like you, while one may be disconnected from their inner child, there are certain things that they won't necessarily get. Or again, since childhood, if not since birth, there's something that was given. That's why it's given from the ferryman. Because you pay the ferryman or give something to the ferryman at the end of your life when you're returning. But when you arrive, it's like the ferryman gives something to you. That's why, like this thing you were born with, this big, beautiful heart, for example, that you were born with, like that was a gift from the ferryman. But it's not until you sort of recognize it as a gift that you allow some of the more beautiful or positive or progressive things. And progressive just in terms of like you moving your life, moving your story forward. And again, the Six of Swords is all about sailing on to calmer waters, putting challenging, difficult things behind you. Not that there won't be challenges and difficulties ahead, but, you know, cool. I kind of still want to pull before and after these, but it's already been like 2 hours and 14 minutes and 39 seconds. I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to pull from the bottom and Archangel of Mysteries and the Warrior with the Shining Flame. Archangel of Mysteries, the Warrior, and the Shining Flame at the bottom. Okay, I'm going to go back to the other screen for now. Cool. Angel who illuminates the shadow, Archangel of Mysteries, and the Warrior is the master of the mystic light. Angel who illuminates shadow, master of the mystic light. And then the shining flame, lightning, and the pyre. After that, lightning, mystic light. Cool. I don't know. Just love that. Love that energy. You know what I mean? It feels like there's something there, but take it as it resonates when it resonates. If it don't resonate, don't take it. I know that I'm looking for Vitruvian, or I'm looking for Revelations cards because all the Vitruvian ones are the ones that came out. There's the Eight of Swords captor again, where we see the shadow of the moon for reference. That is Jupiter and Gemini. If you're curious, what am I looking for? I'm looking for the Six of Swords and the Six of Pentacles. Luckily, neither one of them are already on the table. And also the title card. Girl. I feel like that's Animal Crossing, but it may not be. I'm pretty sure it's Nintendo. It's, let me not. Okay, excuse me. I am halfway, roughly, through the deck. I feel like I'm not even holding these that necessarily. There you go. Roughly halfway through the deck. And I haven't found any of these yet. Looking for the Six of Swords, the Quester, and the Six of Pentacles, the Giver. Oh, girl. The Six of Pentacles in this deck is like a place. Here it is. Okay. Nice. All Vitruvian. Sorry, all Revelations. All full color. We'll just say that. Now I'm looking for the Six of Swords, the Quester, and also the title card. Wow, interesting. As I proceed to say nothing, I'm trying to focus. Title card and the Quester. Okay. The title card is in between two sepia toned ones, two Vitruvian ones. So now I'm just looking for the Six of Swords. This, oh, here it is right here. I was going to show you how many cards I have left, but literally the Six of Swords, the Quester is right there. And the Quester is also all Revelations edition. It was in between the Warrior and the Chancellor, Master of the Mystic Light and the Angel of Justice. Cool. Oh, look, there's that Master of the Mystic Light again with the Angel of Justice, where we had the Master of the Mystic Light with the Angel of the Mysteries. I feel like with that combination, rather than taking justice into our own hands, it almost reads more as like finding closure within ourselves. Because, and maybe this plays into what's already here, we create and we find that closure within ourselves. We make our peace with the big, beautiful heart that we were born with. Um, because even if circumstances and situations and the world changes, if we haven't reached that resolution, or if we don't get that closure for ourselves, it's almost like we will always be lamenting our beautiful heart, right? For example, so we'll put this one up top, this one on bottom, this one up top, this one on bottom, this one up top, this one on the bottom. See, this is how I put the cards in the deck, so that when I just show them, it's the card back. That's what led me to believe that that card had flipped over, because usually I would see the back, or usually I would see the front, but I saw the back. Cool. Anyway, we have the Seven of Pentacles with this title card. So the title card is in between the Scarlet Shield, which is the Queen of Swords, power and authority of air, and the Gardener, Seven of Pentacles, Saturn and Taurus. This is where the title card sits. Interesting. Excuse me. Interestingly, the bottom of every single one of these is a swords card. So with the Giver is in between the Three of Chalices, the Kindred, and the Ace of Swords, Sacred Word, which is the crowning. I guess I already showed you this one, so I'll just, again, all revelations here, all revelations on the next one. The only one that came up with Vitruvian is that title card. So it feels like clarity about the past. At first glance. So now we have the Ace of Swords sitting on the bottom, where we had that Queen of Swords, the Scarlet Shield before. Also, with the Kindred, there is this moon up here with the Norse compass on the moon, which is interesting because I mentioned the thing about Canada and Mexico. And I feel like when I went to the restroom, something about that may have come up, but I don't remember. Right? Just because, like, everything that is north of Canada is also north of Mexico. But just because something is north of Mexico does not necessarily mean it's north of Canada. Because there's a whole band of world between those two places. Right? Not even a flat north, but like a around the globe also north. Why did I just mention that? Because the North compass? I don't know. But also with that title card, what we had clarifying it was the Two of Pentacles. And in the Two of Pentacles, we saw the waves. So also with that Knight of Cups, it's being guided by one's big, beautiful heart, intuition, emotions, whatever. And again, the Norse compass is on that moon. The Six of Swords is in between the Ivory Shield and the Convalescent. So, who is the Ferryman in the Vitruvian edition is the Quester with the moon. You see the moon in this version, in the full color version, but you don't see the moon in the Ferryman. You don't see it in this one, but it's there. Interesting. The Ivory Shield, we saw her before. She's my BTFU, STFU, mind your business queen, specifically in the Vitruvian edition. And this one, she's softer and more giving. We also saw the Archangel Commander. What was in between them? I don't remember. Because she was the one that guards what is sacred. The Archangel Commander is the one that teaches us how to use it or wield it. Sanctum of the Immaculate is the ivory shield. Cool. Am I gonna pull this back up and type more? I don't even know if I'd have enough lines. I will. And this is how I'm gonna do it. So give me a moment as I type with these nails that I need to cut. The Gardener, 7 of Orbs, title card, Vitruvian edition, and the Scarlet Shield. Power and authority of air. I'm not going to have power of air. Let's see, I'm going to put it in the spaces. Okay, I can put power of air, but I don't have room for authority. I feel like authority is more important because of the whole dominance talk. And it's important for us to know on what grounds or with what authority something is sort of being carried out, right? So this is the authority. With the authority of air, it can be like the authority of the mind. With the authority of the mind, we have the right to make our own conclusions, to think our own thoughts, and to subsequently feel however we feel and everything that emerges from a thought. There's a lot of things that will convince us of certain things within the realm of logic. There are like debates, and within the realm of rhetoric, you have like ethos, logos, and pathos, right? Different sort of approaches that you can use to help or manipulate someone into arriving to a certain conclusion. Okay. So here, oh, you can't even see what I'm doing. I mean, it may be relatively, and I mean barely relatively more interesting if you can actually see what I'm typing. I'm just putting it all here. Yeah. So it's the giver. No, no, no. I did that in the wrong place. 6 of Orbs. Before the giver is the kindred, 3 of chalices, the giver, 6 of Orbs, and sacred word, the crowning. I'm going to do the crowning rather than Ace of Swords. The Ferryman, 6 of Swords. So the one in the middle is the one that actually came out. And then before is on top and after is on the bottom. We have the Ivory Shield, which is the Sanctum of the Immaculate. I actually love this combination. Sanctum of, I'm going to say Immaculate Sanctum. Immaculate Sanctum. Woo! Because any more than that, and it'll push it to another line. And then we have the Convalescent, which is the 4 of Swords. So there's a 10 of Swords energy here. Anyway, so there you go. Hey, you can see my that. Let's see. If I click out of it, can I click out of it? Nope. I think it just has to keep flashing. It's fine. Maybe it doesn't. Oh, I minimized the whole window. I'm sorry. Maybe it doesn't bother anyone else. There we go. Okay. So there you go. So power and authority of air with the gardener. So we have the seven of pentacles and the two of pentacles that are both on this title card with the power and authority of air, the scarlet shield, the queen of swords. I had to think. Excuse me. The nine of pentacles is the eminence in this deck, but the nine of pentacles is a minor. It's minor empress energy. Minor empress slash pre queen of pentacles. The queen of pentacles is pre empress. So pre empress is minor empress for me. But it's a pre empress energy with the two of. See, again, I feel like this plays into the energy in the face down portion. Because it's this nine of pentacles pre empress energy that's almost built upon what someone had to do with what they were given. Rather than it necessarily being what something cultivated within you. So, for example, it's like with that big, beautiful heart of yours, going with that particular path or story or way to interpret, way that this could resonate for someone. It's like with that big, beautiful heart that someone holds, what maybe it's simultaneously like what have they cultivated and grown with that, or how has that been changed by the things that they've gone through. And it's interesting. It's partially interesting because we saw the Knight of Chalices with the Six of Swords before. So that's something, it was led. That was the heart and intuition leading the logic and the reasoning mind. But now the Queen of Swords is on the table. And so the Queen of Cups is also on the table, though. But with the Queen of Swords on the table, with this being the power and authority of air, it's like, not surprisingly, the mind I feel like my brain just short circuited. Oh, it's 23405 was just on the clock. Um, I feel like my brain just short circuited, and it's like I'm gonna try. Okay, I'm gonna try. One's perspective. Like this is so easy, like so easily like seen. But as I'm like trying to describe it, I feel like I am struggling. So, for example, let's say someone has a big, beautiful heart. Let's say someone is kind and caring and compassionate. I'm trying not to take a real example. And maybe the North Node Sagittarius in me is just like, say it. It's been 2 hours, 35 minutes, and 6 seconds. Just say it. Because it's like ultimately at the end of the day, the mind has a major part that it plays, even for someone who was led by their heart, their emotions, their intuition. The mind has a powerful role. And again, going to the whole ethos, logos, and pathos of rhetoric, not even talking about fallacies, but mentioning swaying or manipulating. Swaying, manipulating, or persuading. It's like, for example, right? I feel like there aren't a lot of, I feel like I'm getting like more real examples than like apples and cake and cookies. And apparently, you would think my Mercury is in Taurus, the way it's always a food metaphor. Or maybe I'll get hungry after a few hours, and you alone. Um, Honestly, it's just like, let's say that someone has a really big, beautiful heart, but through certain things that someone witnesses, perceives through the information that they are given, they're convinced to see something in a way that where ordinarily, and if they knew the truth, their heart would guide them in one direction, but because what they are coming across may be carefully crafted, it forces, it's like it uses the mind, or it persuades the mind in a way that disengages the heart. So it's very much so someone's like, if I had known, and it doesn't even have to be like largely political, for example, right? Like, let's say, for example, like someone's going through a hard time and another person doesn't know. And regardless of what they've experienced in the past, it's like, let's say, for example, it's a work situation. One person is an employer, the other one is an employee, and the employer is the one with the big beautiful heart, or the manager is the one with the big beautiful heart, and their subordinate is doing whatever. Like, and let's say they're like always late or whatever, and like they're let go. Or maybe there's a conversation that happens, right? Maybe the manager or the employer pulls the person in and they're like, hey, you've been tardy. Do you say tardy when you're not a child in school? I feel like people just say late, right? I don't know. You've been late, you've been coming in late or short on your hours or whatever for the past, week, 2 weeks. And at first, I gave you grace because something may be going on, blah, 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 whatever. But like at this point, it warrants some serious disciplinary action. And just to let you know, termination is not off the table. But then maybe when the person is like, this is what's happening, this is what I'm going through, this is why i'm I've been late, or this is why I haven't maybe been doing my full hours, but I've been trying to make sure that, or I do make sure that even though I'm late or even though I'm not getting my hours, the work is being done. Can you say that my shortened hours is affecting the output? And then maybe it's one of those like, no, but contractually you're supposed to be here. It's like if that person knew the situation and circumstances, they would handle it differently. they may be more compassionate, caring. There may be a solution that can be worked to mitigate some of the stuff in the past. And it's like the big, beautiful heart that someone is given, like that's the heart in the way that it should be, whatever. Right. And so the suffering that someone was always bound to experience, maybe it's the pain of empathizing with someone in that situation scenario. Right. Like if I were in that position, this is how I would feel, or like not even having to put themselves in that position to be able to extend some kind of compassion. You know what I mean? And it's like that's why they are positioned where they are. Like it's like that's why the person with the big beautiful heart is the employer or the manager in that position, so that as someone is going through that, they have someone to help them, so that then they go on to do or be whatever they go on to do and be, because none of us know. Like so many of us live our lives trying to find that. Some of us know what our purpose is, but we're still like living it in the day to day. You know what I mean? And then, but we don't necessarily know what the purpose of, like, what each other's purposes are, or we don't necessarily know what the people that we're coming in contact with on the day to day, like what they're going to do, accomplish, or whatever. And again, it's like playing into that we were perfectly positioned to be a person of support when that person really needed it. But with this power of air, with the power of like the mind and the power of thought and reasoning and logic, it's like given certain information, we wouldn't necessarily know to be in like big, beautiful heart mode. You know what I mean? Not that we should or shouldn't always be in that. I'm not here to give my opinion, regardless, either way. That is not necessarily within the scope of this, how I'm reading it. Your intuition, discernment, connection may give you your answer. Okay. But it's like that's how this is playing in. And with the two of coins and the seven of coins, for example, if someone had been in in a similar situation before, then what grew within them may be more compassion and consideration for others in the same or similar situations. Right? If the two of pentacles is kind of sort of like the struggle or the challenges in living a day-to-day life, and the seven of pentacles is how one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, to the point where they all sort of like culminate in something that we're ultimately cultivating. It's that energy. Now, with the three of chalices and the six of chalices, just like we could add the seven and the two, this is the nine of chalices. So again, we're at another nine. We're at the nine of. Okay, sorry, I tried to jump ahead. We were at the nine of pentacles between the seven of coins, between the two of coins and the seven of orbs. Now we're at the nine of cups with the six of chalices and the three of chalices, between the kindred and that six of cups. And then we have the sacred word, ace of swords, the crowning. Again, in this deck, and we saw the warrior at the bottom of the deck. I love this. In this deck, I've mentioned it before. Every time I see an ace of swords, I look at where the crown is relative to the hilt, because this is where we hold the sword. So if the crown is all the way up here, sometimes I interpret that to be a truth that goes like way over our heads, right? Or maybe it's one of those, okay, like I understand that this is true, but what do I do with this truth? How does this affect or impact me? Or like, what do I do with this information? Right? Sorry. The brain rot got me for a split second. But when it's down here, it's like this is something we can use. We saw this same sword in the addition for addition, we've seen it recently. We see the same sword in the hand here with the master of the mystic light. Now, between this almost looks more like the lunar wheel that we see, and that's like the solar wheel. With the Ace of Swords in this deck, the motif is more plainly or clearly connected, related. Um, anyway, also, I don't think I necessarily caught this. The angel who illuminates the shadow with the master of mystic light, the warrior can almost use this mystic light that they've mastered to illuminate other shadows, to bring things to the light. And so, for example, within that same story metaphor of the kind, compassionate, big, beautiful hearted boss or employer, it's like you don't have to make everybody aware of someone's situation, but that maybe like they become an advocate for someone else, right? Because it's one thing to support someone, it's a completely different thing to have the power to advocate for them or to have the power to provide them the opportunity to advocate for themselves, right? So let's say, for example, you as a manager may make a certain choice and decision related to that employee, but someone above you, be it corporate or otherwise, may get the flag of the times in the system and the timekeeping system, and it may escalate it above your head, where the power of choice and decision is sort of taken away from you. And then you have the opportunity to, again, either advocate or just be like, I wish I could do more, but my hands are tied. There's nothing more I can do. Tied hands. And again, that's something about using that mystic light to also illuminate other shadows or to bring other things to light. To be in the position, I feel like there's a lot of a lot. And it almost feels like because this is coming off of that big, beautiful heart energy, it's like there's a way to make something known that honors the vulnerability and the situation that like someone is in. Like I didn't watch the full clip, but my number one fan showed it to me the other day. I came across it before she showed it to me, but I just kept scrolling. There was an interview, maybe it was written in his book, maybe it was something that they knew, but there was an interview that a woman was conducting, and she was like, he's overcome this and that and all this other stuff. And he was like, wow, like, he was like, I know that information is out there, but is that like really how you have to introduce me by the stuff that I went through? He was like, what if I introduced you? Like, you've been up and down and you've been in the whatever. And she's like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. Like there's a way to handle it, and there's a way to advocate that honors whatever. And again, I feel like that's what I like about the Ace of Swords being so close, or about the crown in the Ace of Swords being so close to the hand. With this Queen of Swords connected to that big, beautiful energy. It's because, again, it's like there's a way to go about it that is a gift and a skill and an ability in and of itself. Because not everyone has the potential or the capability. I feel like a lot more people have the capability. Not everyone, a lot of people have the potential, but not everyone necessarily has the capability or the desire to be gentler, especially depending on the circumstances. And when it's required, there are big, beautiful, open hearted people that will also, it's very much that, like, I'm going to hold your hand as I say this type of energy, right? It's like, I'm going to say what needs to be said, but know that it's coming from a place of love. It's not coming from a place of judgment. And I also understand some of, like, all of the stuff that goes, behind this. And I'm not invalidating your experiences or whatever. I'm here for you, but also this is something that you need to know. Very much that I'm going to hold your hand as I say this. And whereas, sometimes you have, like, very brash, I'm just going to come out and say it, rip off the band aid, telling it like a TI is. Sometimes it's necessary. It's like there's a time and a place and a situation where all things, like, sort of thrive, right? And so, yeah. Anyway, the Nine of Cups energy is so interesting. The Nine of Cups is a card of wish fulfillment, right? The Star is also a card of wish fulfillment, but it's coded as the healer in both of these decks. And it can be seen either way. It's wish fulfillment and it's also healing. But the Nine of Cups is all wish fulfillment, right? So this is wish fulfillment between the Three of Cups and the Six of Cups. And so it almost reads as, like, once you've made peace with yourself, then that peace leads you to and makes you attractive to. So it attracts you to and it makes you attractive towards similar self accepting energies that will, it's just like it's a space for, I would say, truer, deeper relationships to form or blossom. Um, and that's not indicative of any type of relationship that may already exist. But again, it's like when you can see and acknowledge and love and accept yourself deeper, like that depth that you attain within yourself, it's very much like we can only meet others as far as we've met ourselves. And since you've met yourself so deeply, now you can meet others just as deeply and you can be met as deeply. And that opens up the road to, even when it's like, because it could also read as more fulfillment than, I mean, like wish fulfillment, wish granted, but again, there's something like deeper or richer. For example, like, it's not just a dream car that you get, it's not just like a partner or a person or a job. Because sometimes we can get the person that we think we want, we can get the car that we think we want, we can get the job that we think we want. But once we get in that relationship, once we get the car, once we get into the company, we realize that, you know, but there's something very, like, especially between the Three of Cups and the Six of Cups, there's something deeply fulfilling also as the wish is being fulfilled. And it may fulfill you in ways that you didn't even necessarily anticipate or expect at the onset. But again, it's almost like because you've met yourself that deeply, you have the capacity to be met that deeply again. Otherwise, it may be kind of sort of like, why is this as like, either it would be easy to take advantage, it would be easy to forget, it would be easy to miss certain things. But when you've met yourself that deeply, it's like you're capable of maybe recognizing how well of a match maybe something is, right? Because if you look at it at macro, I was gonna say, I wanted to say macro, I started to say macro, but then I tried to correct myself in the micro. If you look at yourself at a macro scale, there are things that are like met. But then when you look at yourself at a micro scale, there may be things that kind of sort of like go unmet. So, for example, if it's a job, maybe it's the industry that you want, but it's like the pay isn't what you were wanting, the role isn't what you were wanting, whatever. So, like macro, yes, but on the micro scale, like there are these things that kind of sort of like don't really, whatever. But again, it's like because, and on the micro scale, it feels like it's things that would be easy to miss, right? And so again, let's say I feel like a job is easy, low hanging fruit. Let's say your top two or three, it's the position, the location, and the salary, right? So let's say you get all three, the position, the location, and the salary. But then it's like once you get into the workforce, you notice like there are subtle ways that leadership shows that they value their subordinates, subtle ways that the company shows that they actually listen, certain ways that like subtle ways that like you can see like that appreciation. Like if they say they welcome feedback, they actually mean it. The suggestion box isn't a shoot to the incinerator. You know what I mean? It's like there are ways when you're that aware of yourself and in touch and in tune with yourself, ways that you'll see that like where that acknowledgement, oh, there's another emotion. There's another wave of emotions. You'll see the ways in which like you're really seen and acknowledged. And maybe there could have been a time where you would have felt like a burden, or maybe you were made to feel like a burden for wanting or asking for certain things. Maybe there were just things that you sort of like learned to accept about the world at large, companies, people, whatever. But I don't know, something about this 369 of cups just feels so deeply fulfilling. And then it's here with the Ace of Swords, sacred word. Because this is sacred word, this feels like what was promised. And so, again, this is the whole chunk of that, like the big, beautiful heart, right? This is where you really start to revel or feel joy because it's like your big, beautiful heart allows you to so deeply receive, be validated, acknowledged, appreciated, all of that. And it's like you get to also put it out in positive ways, and maybe you also, again, there's a deep fulfillment here. So I'm assuming it's on the table. At the very least, it's on the table. You get to see positive impacts of having that big, beautiful heart. And then there comes that moment of like, this is why I was born. This is what I'm here for. And it's like this thing that used to cause so much pain in the past, all of the suffering was worth it type energy. And with again, that's sort of like this sacred word. That's why, even though you were always going to suffer with that big, beautiful heart, it was also always going to be worth it because it's your superpower. You're the Mati on the team, you know? And maybe when you're a kid, you're like, this person got fire, that person got earth, this other person got wind, they got water, heart. Like, what does heart even do? But maybe it's one of those things where, depending on the situation or circumstances, or as you get older, you see the power of heart, and especially coming off of the power and authority of air when it comes to the heart. Information can be manipulated in a certain type of way to steer the heart down paths it would never take, or vice versa. Anyway, Lastly, but never, ever, ever leastly, is the Ivory Shield, Sanctum of the Immaculate, and the Four of Swords. Now, in this column, we have the Queen, no, the King, the Ivory, no, the Queen. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We have the Queen because the Archangel of Healing is the King. I feel like we saw the Archangel of Healing. Maybe not. Um, we have the Queen and the Knight of Cups. Also, with the convalescent, like convalescence is all about healing, right? Particularly, you could say after a painful and or traumatic experience, it's something that you have to like recover from, right? Like, let's say you get a paper cut or something more surface topical, like you put a band-aid on it or you dress it and like you live life mostly as normal. You may like want to be careful around hand sanitizer because it's gonna sting because you got a paper cut. But besides that, even if inconvenient, it's like a minor inconvenience. It's not so impactful that you got to go through like physical therapy or something like that to like find a new normal or to get back to whatever or to like grow your baseline or whatever. Like the convalescence, it's something that has to be recovered from, not only healed. But with that ivory shield that stands guard at the sanctum of the Immaculate, who is the shield of the Archangel of Healing, also how again we've been seeing that star energy as the healer because it's codified as the healer in this deck, in these decks, in these two editions of the same deck, two different editions of the same deck. um, it feels like I'm not surprised, and even in the convalescent you see the lady like there to pour out those healing waters, and it feels like at this point what it does is it's like it my brain, especially coming off of that energy where someone learns to love their big beautiful heart and where they have those environments where they feel safe to like just be that big beautiful hearted whatever. um there's something here where the Knight of Cups, it's like they're not fighting it or they don't struggle with it as much or at all anymore. So while they were always sort of like led by their heart or led by their intuition, it's like something like completely changes the game. And I feel like almost there's an emphasis here because I'm looking at the convalescent and the waters that it pours out. Also, the 4 plus the 6 of swords in this column, we have the 4 swords and the 6 of swords, right? So we had a 2 7 9 and a 3 6 9. Now we have a 4 6 10. Was this not the same reading where at the top of the reading we saw the 10 of swords and I was like, the 10 of swords used to be one of my favorite cards when I first like early in my journey, the 10 of swords and the tower, because of like there were a lot of things that needed to end so that I could really begin to like heal and to like, stuff like that. And also, this is coming off of that literally because of your big, beautiful heart, you're able to honor someone's situation or circumstances in a way. You're able to advocate for them in a way that like doesn't victimize them. And so it's like it's that same Ten of Swords energy, but here it's broken in between the six and the four, which the Suit of Swords can be hard to find like positive energies in. But the Four of Swords is about healing. And again, the Six of Swords is about going from challenge to ease, moving into calmer waters. And it feels like rather than being in the place of like healing, someone becomes like a triage nurse almost, or is able to help others as they heal. Maybe it's like a program or a network or a resource or an organization that someone creates to specifically help people, or whether they just like really sort of step into that role or purpose in their lives in whatever way. Because again, I feel like what I love about the work, sort of particularly about the work thing, is it can be so easy to be like, well, like company policy says this and whatever, whatever. But, and like, that's the thing about it, makes me think of that one CEO, Dan Price, I believe his name is Dan Price. It makes me think of him and how like he didn't take pay raises and stuff like that, rather than like living as a CEO and his employees living that typical life. Like he was there for his employees, and was it like during the lockdowns and stuff like that, his employees willingly, some of them at the very least, maybe not all of them, maybe some of them had feelings, but some of at least his employees willingly took a pay cut. And I think there was even a time where they like worked without getting paid because they knew, they trusted him too. When things recovered or when things turned around, he would compensate them for that. And he did. And you know, there were families that started and they would talk about how like so many of their friends are like hesitant to have children because of the state of the economy and stuff like that, but they were comfortable enough that, you know, especially for like a pair where both of them work there, and they even got him like a car. I'm pretty sure they bought him his dream car. Now, him getting his dream car, and maybe this goes back to that sort of situation that I was just talking about. Like, he could have gotten himself his dream car a while ago if he had taken that CEO pay. If he had run his company like how CEOs typically run their companies, and if he treated his employees in the way that CEOs typically treat their employees, he could have gotten multiple dream cars and all this other stuff a long time ago. But would the employees of any of those companies willingly take a pay cut or go without getting paid? Would those employees care enough about their bosses or CEO, particularly the CEO, because you can have a bad CEO and like a good boss? Like, are the employees of other companies like getting things for their CEOs? And again, it's like the level of fulfillment from knowing what your team will do for you and sacrifice for you because of what you do for them. Again, like it's just something about the play between he could have gotten his own dream car if he took the typical path, but it was like more impactful because after all of that, that was their way. One of the many ways that they also showed up for him. And again, you could say it's almost unheard of in the business world. And I think he did say that like he had hoped that more CEOs would follow suit. I mean, don't we all? um, but it's just like it's possible. Not only is it possible, anyway, there's something about the way that someone navigates after. But again, like it's like if someone really fully accepts themselves that differently, if they have safe spaces where they are met, and if they have that acknowledgement and appreciation and stuff like that, it's like it's not difficult to imagine them carrying themselves different or walking through life differently, knowing that, more so than knowing that it's possible to be fulfilled that deeply, but like actually being fulfilled that deeply. You know what I mean? And again, like this is one of the gentlest ways. Because if you do a 3-7 Ten of Swords, that's heartbreak, backstabbing, and betrayal. If you do a 2-8, that's like feeling trapped with the Eight of Swords, but also like being at an impasse with the Two of Swords. They both kind of sort of give that trapped impasse in different decks. Both of them will be blindfolded to get. I mean, 2 5 of Swords is, well, that's an immovable object meets an unstoppable force. And depending on the situation, that could be being trapped between a rock and a hard place. And then an Ace and a 9, it's not as bad, but it's either information that brings on anxiety, or it's clarity that's gained because of an anxiety that someone has gone through. The 4 and the 6, like healing after something, like again, recovering and moving forward into a calmer situation, a more peaceful life. I don't know, there's something about this energy. And again, with it being the master of the mystic light and the angel who illuminates shadow, it's like being positioned to show people in real life that like certain things don't have to be as challenging, as difficult, or as impossible as we've always felt them to be, or as we've always been convinced that they have to be. There was something in here, I believe it was between the 2 and the 7 of Pentacles, of like growing up believing like this is the way the world works. Between the 2 and the 7 of Pentacles, with that power and authority of air, of the mind, it's like believing that this is the way something is because it's the way that something's always been. And this completely defies that. But again, if this is around the year of the snake, that would just be something else that was shed or released or let go of. Just because something is standard, just because something is the norm, just because this is a certain type of way that someone acts or behaves when they want something or whatever, doesn't mean that it's okay. Doesn't mean that that's the way it has to be. Doesn't mean that we can't choose to do something differently. And honestly, with the way that these cards read, not only has someone who this resonates for, particularly, potentially, if it resonates, if this statement also resonates for you, take it. Not only do you know that those things are possible, but it's like you're going to be moving forward in a way that honors and reflects all that you've been through. And we're moving into the year of the fire horse, which is a lot of speed. It's a lot of momentum. It's almost like you may not get as much pushback as you may necessarily anticipate now that everything is shifting, because it's like you've gone through what you needed to go through. You've grown through what you needed to grow through. And you are who it's like you are who you need you to be, but also you're this version of you that can work with that sort of like divine revelation and stuff like that to move things forward in the way that it should go, rather than like, let's say, for example, maybe in the past, right? Because again, the Knight of Cups is here, always led by, hey Holly, how you doing? No problem, thanks for saying hi. The chat is on today. um it's like you're also who and where you need to be for the divine to not only like use you, but to like work with you again, because the Knight of Cups was already here. So that it's like you've always been maybe led by your intuition and by your heart, but maybe in the past it would have been like, oh, but like, you know, this is never going to catch on. Like, I can't say this, or I can't, like, I'm the boss, so I have to be tough, or, like, this is the way the world works. So even though I want to do something different, this is how I have to show up, or just like hesitancy, right? If there's something that you like, it's on your heart to do for someone else, but if you feel that, like, oh, well, that may be awkward, or like whatever reason, we may not do what our intuition, discernment, and what our heart is telling to do. Again, it's like that voice is growing quieter, or we're just getting bolder. The Year of the Fire Horse is the time for action. So yeah, 3 hours and 15 minutes later. So ultimately, and we're this, like, we have a few weeks left before the new moon, apparently annular solar eclipse, that kicks off the Year of the Fire Horse. Um, and how this reads is, it feels like the biggest takeaway is to sort of like appreciate how far you've come, and more so than, because I feel like we can appreciate how far we've come in terms of feeling gratitude for where we are, especially if we've come out of something challenging. But it's like to like really sort of see you, for you to like really see you, and maybe as the Year of the Snake is closing, or maybe as you reflect back on the Year of the Snake. So basically, the past year. I think it was early. Was it late January or early Feb last year? I don't remember. I did go to the Chinese New Year parade in London. I told my friend, I was like, I want to go. I want to go. So I was there. And they were like the snakes. Anyway, I'm not going to be there this year. That's kind of sad. Maybe I'll just find one like nearby and show up. Um, anyway, in the past year or so, maybe as you think back, or as it comes to a close, again, it's just that energy of like more so reflecting on the strength and the, it's like being in a position to rewrite your character and the narrative that is the story you tell about yourself. And it's like you don't even have to use like different circumstances, excuse me, from the exact same circumstances. You could write your story as one, excuse me, of a champion, because you've gone through and grown through everything you've gone through and grown through. And moving forward, especially energetically, from the Year of a Snake, if it's about shedding and transformation and transitions, from a 9 year that's about closing out one chapter, into a 10 year, new cycles, into a fire horse momentum, not only the momentum of the horse, but with the fire behind it. It's like the horse moves and then the fire spreads. It's like this wildfire that spreads as the horse is sort of moving. And it's like everyone, it's not, oh girl, hopefully not. It's not like whipped up into a frenzy, but it's the how like passion can be contagious and also magnetic. Um yeah, so it's like, and that could really fuel someone, that could really fuel you moving forward. right? When you have that different perspective. So anyway, I'm not going to get a final 3 here. I'm going to get a final 1, and it should wipe the boxes. Yeah. Oh, you can't even see it because I minimized the window. I'm so sorry. I am going to switch back to this scene though. As I separate these and get a final card, let me timestamp 3:20. Let's say that was like an hour and a half. Final cards 3:20, 30, maybe. Close enough. Again, this is your reminder that timestamps on this channel, any video you watch, timestamps are an approximation, not a guarantee. But yeah, I kind of love this energy. Oh, both of the title cards are here. So this is in color. So this is the back of the Revelations edition. This is the title card. And again, this is the back of the Vitruvian edition. And this is the title card. If you're curious. I do also love that the title card came out. Because I don't know, just like with the metamorphosis of the caterpillar into the butterfly. It's just like there are things, again, it's the shedding, the transition, the transformation, also the wisdom. Also, I feel like Snake is more sort of like clever than wise. But it's kind of hard to be clever and unwise. It's hard. I would say it's hard to be truly clever and unwise. Like cleverness really works when you sort of get it, just like the jester, right? That energy works when the jester is actually like really smart, right? Otherwise, girl, it's fine. We ain't got to get into it. So right now, I do it from the backs because it's easier. I'm separating these two back into their respective decks. And you could say, I mean, isn't like a sepia card and like a card in full color, isn't that easy enough? Maybe, but I'll have to think less or look less, honestly. There's less visual stress if I just use the backs. The difference is more discreet with the card backs. But discreet, not in a way of like, I guess that's the thing that's interesting about the word discreet, right? You hear discreet and sometimes you think like not obvious, but discreet, especially when it comes to like levels, it's like very obvious. It's extremely obvious, right? Like you could say there's a discrete difference between a red apple and a green apple because one is red and one is green, and there's nothing subtle about that. Or if something is broken into discrete whatever, it's like this is clearly the first level, clearly the second level, clearly the third level. And honestly, it gives oh girl, like photosynthesis. In photosynthesis, like when it comes to electrons and the spectrum of light that they emit, like those are distinct levels, right? For example, just make it simple. Like there is one, yeah, level 1, 2, 3, and 4. Level 1 is like, well, one level is red, 2 levels is orange, 3 levels is yellow, and so on and so forth through the rainbow. So if something jumps 3 levels, it gets enough energy to jump 3 levels, or like 3.5 levels. If it gets enough energy to jump 3.5 levels, it'll settle on the 3rd level because it doesn't round up. They're discrete, so they don't round up. And then it goes back down 3 levels after it emits all that energy. You'll see red, orange, yellow. It'll emit yellow light because it got enough energy to jump 3 levels, to clear 3 hurdles. And like when I think discrete, like that's what I think. Like very clearly delineated. And not like shh. Anyway. How interesting. And I'm pretty sure how interesting that that one word can mean both. Something very like obvious or clearly cut, and something hard to discern. Discrete. So let's go to the full Webster. Full Webster's. I almost want to say it's spelled differently, but I don't think so. Having or showing discernment or good judgment in conduct, and especially in speech, or prudent, especially cautious and restrained, as in revealing information, unobtrusive, unnoticeable, unpretentious, modest. Those are all different definitions. So, one example for a couple who wanted a discrete bar between the study and the living room, Koch, New York architect Stuart Diston designed a small scale bar that's hidden behind doors under the stairs and takes advantage of plumbing in an adjacent powder room. So that's one way. Low profile, but when it comes to like discrete, let's say science, you do spell it different. You do spell it different, because when I was thinking about it, I was like, because when I was typing it, I was like discrete, but discreet. So there's a difference between the EET and the ETE, just like there's a difference between SUCEED or SUCCEED and SUCCEDE. Succeed and secede, right? Like to secede the throne, for example. It is different. So discrete, discrete, individual, distinct, or unconnected units. That like distinct. This distinct. I could use that word. I couldn't think of distinct, but discrete came to mind. And then again, discrete, prudent, quiet, or unnoticeable. So how interesting that they sound the same, but they're like completely different almost. Cool. All right. So with that out of the way, the Seven of Cups and our Seven of Pentacles and Justice. This is like that major energy. But so maybe again, part of this year of the snake was maybe also like recognizing some things about what we've gone through. But again, that came out where it was like, I think that was with the Six of Cups that was flanked by the Angel of Art and Grace, Archangel of Glory, and the Nocturne, Two of Pentacles. It's like getting to that point where like no one should ever be hungry. Right? The Gardener and Justice. It's like what we go through, we don't have to accept that just because that's the way things are, or just because that's the way that things have always been, that it has to continue to be that way. right? Especially with all these like Neptune and Saturn moving from Pisces into Aries, with Pluto being early Aquarius, like all this other stuff. When it comes to things changing, that's where like the momentum is, or it's going to be. The High Priestess, the Priestess, and this Stronghold of the Grail. And the Suit of Water, and you see, what's that, the moon? Yeah, it's the moon. There's the message from the High Priestess and the Suit of Water. Your intuition, your discernment, your heart is how the divine speaks to you. One of the ways, one of the many, many ways that the divine utilizes. Sometimes it is, oh, look, now there's the moon and the High Priestess, the necromancer. Gateway of Resurrection and Sanctuary of Isis. Gateway of Resurrection with the Sanctuary of Isis, and Isis is literally associated with resurrection. She resurrected Osiris after Set did his dirty work. What was I saying? I don't remember. I already forgot. All right, final card from the SKT Vitruvian edition. It's a card we've seen before. It's the Lovers. We saw in the Six of Cups the Phoenix and the Dragon that represent masculine and feminine energies. We saw them in eggs as babies. Now they are fully grown. And again, the Mutatis Mutandis. It's to change and be changed. And that's kind of like that Knight of Pentacles front to back energy of like someone always sort of being led by their heart and intuition, but maybe more hesitant because of experiences or reservations, whatever. But then like learning to trust it or just like going with it. But how they are positioned to like change things up, really, right? To change and to be changed. And with Soleil Coagula, sometimes things have to fall apart before they can come together, right? Sometimes things have to fall apart for us to sort of like let go and allow for some neural re-networking to happen. Neural re-networking just being like, again, that just because things happen this way or went this way or just because it's been this way for a while doesn't mean that this is the way that it always has to be. And sometimes things have to reach that level of like catastrophic failure in order for there to be an openness or a willingness to do something a different way. Right? Maybe there's a lot of that if it's not broke, don't fix it mentality. And so like it had to completely break down before we admit, okay, like maybe it does need to be fixed. Because there's only like duct tape and WD-40. They are amazing and they do wonders, but there's only so much duct tape can do, and there's only so much WD-40 can do. At a certain point, you're going to need something a little bit more heavy duty. What's more heavy duty than duct tape and WD-40? Don't ask me. Apparently, according to the cards, you're the one with all the solutions. Or intuitively, you're guided to a solution. Bottom of the deck is again the Scarlet Shield, power and authority of air. Who's behind the Scarlet Shield? The Seeker, the Priestess, and the Angel. With that Necromancer, the Moon. So now between the Moon and the High Priestess is Temperance, which balances both. And look, there's the Shining Dew or the Shining Water, that Knight of Cups right behind it again. So even though this is Sagittarius, it pours water from one cup into another. And then we have two watery energies between the Priestess and the Necromancer. So it's almost an energy of like something being on a need to know basis. And apparently you need to know. Or it was like insider, like a man on the inside. It was kind of like insider trading, a man on the inside. You know somebody, you have a trusted source, and because of your code of journalism or whatever, because your reporter's integrity, I'm like, what do you call a person in a journalist? Duh. I'm like, what do you call a person in journalism? A journalismist? No, a journalist. Because of your journalist integrity, like you don't reveal your sources or something like that. So this is almost very like your intuition, discernment nudging you in a certain way. And especially because you trust it, you're going to go in that direction, even if on the surface, it doesn't necessarily look like maybe you should. It's like, well, if you follow the trends, then this and that and the other thing. And that's the thing, even when it comes to like algorithms, right? Because I feel like it was more so a thing maybe 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, when the YouTube studio was like, hey, trends show that people will perform long form content. So, try uploading a longer form. Hey, reels are blowing up and shorts are blowing up right now. So try shorter content. The thing with like following trends is like you're always chasing, but the trendsetters are the ones that set the trends. The preference shifted to long form content after some quality long form content or some interesting, intriguing long form content started to come out. And that's when it shifted to long form content. And maybe that attention spans burned out, and then we went to the flipping reels and TikToks. I mean, that was before TikTok, I think. After Vine, but before TikTok. And in between was long form content. The point is, there are trendsetters, and you don't set trends by following trends. And this is like, that's this like knowing, like an inside, a person on the inside, your intuition, discernment, the divine is like telling you. Again, what's behind the Scarlet Shield is the seeker spirit in search of science. Queen of Swords, Cardinal Air Libra with the air or Aquarius energy here. Also, we see the snake and the eagle. When it comes to the sanctuary of Isis and the gateway of resurrection, Horus is the one that came and put Set in his place. I believe. Resting. But yeah, something about this lovers is giving. It's not mutual compromise, like mutual benefit. A solution where everyone wins. Cool. Also, it's not one thing or the other. But in order for something to be proven, something has to be done, right? An experiment must be conducted or a behavior must be observed for it to be proven. I'm getting hungry. I've been up too long. Sorry. All right. From the Revelations edition, we have the Shining Gale, Winds of the Self at the cut with that Kindred. Three of Cups again. I didn't necessarily mix the cards. I just, I'm shuffling now. There is the Archangel of Healing. Angel who salves and purifies. The King of Cups to that Queen of Cups. Ivory Shield. Sanctum of the Immaculate. All right. Final card. I just heard a noise, and it made me think of a knock at the door. And then I heard the Jack's mom from Into the Woods say, "Opportunity is not a link." No, that was Cinderella. Pretty sure that was Cinderella and not Jack's mom. I heard somebody from Into the Woods say, "Opportunity is not a lengthy visitor." So, and again, sort of in the vein of the deep fulfillment that emerged from the wish granted of the Three of Cups kindred meets the Six of Cups memory keeper. In the same vein of like, once you've met yourself that deeply and you're able to be met that deeply, you'll notice different ways. It's almost like maybe you'll notice different things that you didn't think you'd ever experience or that you didn't think were possible, right? Like a company that actually cares about its employees and it's not all about like cheap labor and stuff like that. Who doesn't want to feel appreciated? It's not rocket science. It may not be good business, but it's not rocket science anyway. Uh, but in the same vein, it's like there will be ways to recognize opportunities when they arise so you don't have to be so hesitant necessarily. There's the priestess again with the Hector at the cut this time. Because that's the sanctuary of Isis with the Hector and Horus, the energy of Horus came through on the shield of the Scarlet Shield. It's like what Osiris failed to do, or what Osiris struggled to do, Horus will do easily. It's a different generation. It's a new era. They's a different breed. So, what was a challenge and a struggle and a dilemma and an impossibility before, it may be so easy. For example, for you who this resonates for, maybe it was easy for you to fall into whatever you fell into before when you didn't fully see, validate, and appreciate yourself. When there weren't also people and situations and places, safe spaces in your life where you were seen, valued, appreciated, and admired. But now that you are, and now that you know what love really is, it makes it easier to not fall for like the fake stuff, right? Because you know. Type energy. Or it's like you're not going to invalidate your intuition and discernment anymore. Because you know you've learned to trust it. All right. Final card from the SKT Revelations. Please. Made a little noise, but it did not flip or fall. That one's sticking out, but it did not flip or fall. That made noise and it flips. Another sanctum, the Golden Shield, Sanctum of Splendor. This is the shield to the Archangel of Glory. The Archangel of Glory was the one that was like, appreciate, admire, qualify yourself by your tenacity, your determination, your creativity, your resourcefulness, your ingenuity. I feel like resourcefulness has an almost negative connotation. It's like it's good to be resourceful, but sometimes it feels like it can come across as like a little But when you say ingenuity, I feel like ingenuity has a lot of similarities with resourcefulness, but a much more positive connotation. Right? It's almost like resourcefulness is clarified by lack or is clarified by need or it's clarified by an absence of something. There was an absence of something, something was needed, so you had to be resourceful. to get it. But when it comes to ingenuity, that is clarified by like creativity, also clarified by resourcefulness, but the more positive connotations of resourcefulness. And again, it's like, again, similar energy, it evokes something different. And maybe something, as you are narrating your own story, maybe something that subtle could change a lot. But anyway, there's the sanctum of splendor. All of the treasures that lied beyond or within the domain of the archangel of glory, the angel of arts and grace. We see also there's a solar eclipse in this card where we saw the lunar eclipse in the Eight of Swords. Bottom of the deck is the archangel of mysteries, the angel who illuminates the shadow. We saw the Vitruvian edition before. We see the Revelations edition now. Behind the Vitruvian archangel of mysteries was the warrior, master of the mystic life. Behind this one is the chariot, chariot of Osiris. We saw the gateway of resurrection and the sanctuary of Isis. Now we see the chariot of Osiris with this archangel of mysteries that were at the bottom of the deck when that sanctum of splendor came out. And again, fresh off the back of that, what Osiris may have struggled to do in the first time he faced Set, Horus will do easily. It was that Five of Swords energy, easily. And under that chariot is the Seven of Wands, the Dark Horse, Seven of Scepters. Under the Dark Horse is the bereaved. That's Isis when she's at her sanctuary, putting the pieces of Osiris back together. Between Isis and Osiris is that Dark Horse, Seven of Wands. And behind that, behind Isis, is the Shining Waters. There it is again. I mentioned this because in this Dark Horse, you can see how this person can be as confident as they are. You can see why they can face nearly or seemingly insurmountable odds. You can see how they so confidently approach the impossible and the daunting. It's because right there with them. Now, what Osiris couldn't do before can now be accomplished easily. Cool. Love it. With this angel who illuminates the shadow, and with us seeing the divine presence behind this dark horse, it's like the divine, like stepping forward, maybe through you, right? Maybe someone's faith in humanity is absolutely shattered, for example, and you are that Dan Price, that hopefully still unproblematic Dan Price, that proves that someone is out there who moves and operates differently, who puts their money where their mouth is, and who doesn't go. See, but that's the thing. Like I feel like in a lot of companies, especially maybe from the top down, they are about innovation and doing things like new things. But sometimes when you get to a particular person within the chain of command, they're very set in their ways. Set, get it? I didn't. That was unintentional. They're very set in their ways and they can quickly become antiquated, right? So, as someone under that particular supervisor manager in that particular office that's very set on yesterday, but to hear coming down from the top, we're all about innovation and, like, about the future. It's like, how are we moving towards the future when somewhere we're stuck in the past? Just a question. All right. So now we're going to get the final card from the Diceology, which doesn't necessarily have the same impact as the other final cards, but hey, we're going to do it anyway. One last message. And that message is Oh, let me type in the box first. Final card of OJL 129. And it is the Six of Swords again. What I love about this Six of Swords in particular is it looks like this is sailing in the waters of that Two of Pentacles. In the Two of Pentacles, it was actually smooth on the right side of the card and it was choppier on the left side. And that boat was like, those waves were doing that. And the boat was like, so the waves are as choppy as they were, but this ship is sailing a lot smoother. The ship is sailing as if the waves were calm. You can even see what I typed. Now Chino was out there shaking. He probably hears that I'm still awake, and I don't know if he's trying to go out or what. There you go. I don't know, for clarification, so you can see what I typed. The final card of OJL 129, as choppy as those waves are, it's smooth sailing. And I kind of love this. I kind of love this as like the final card, or the final card, the final card of the final cards. It doesn't matter how choppy the waves are, it doesn't matter how rough the sea is, it's smooth sailing. And also, smooth sailing may not look like what we thought it would. And that's because we're better able to navigate the water. So, what is smooth now may not have been smooth or as smooth in the past. But because our sailing prowess has increased, so to have the avenues and the ways, the, I want to say mediums, but I know the more proper plural is media. Um, there are more mediums that are open, there are more ways, there are more possibilities because we can traverse them, right? If we can scale mountains like a Capricorn, like a goat, if we can scale mountains like a goat, then mountains are no longer an obstacle, right? And speaking of obstacles, again, what the first card we saw was the Hierophant in the SKT Revelations edition with the elephant. What was an obstacle or what was created or positioned in our life as an obstacle before, you've cleared, right? So again, smooth sailing ahead, but smooth, it's like our definition of smooth has changed. Our definition of possible has changed. And so many other definitions are what we thought of as defined in discrete, maybe we now see as discrete. And I'll leave it up to you to figure out which one is which. Anyway, thanks again, Holly, for stopping by. I hope you all have an amazing whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that whatever you need along your path journey may you find. And I hope you all the best in the closing of your Year of the Snake and the opening of your Year of the Fire Horse. Was it the Earth Snake? I'm pretty sure it wasn't the Water Snake because we just had a Year of the Water something else. I want to say it was the Earth Snake. 2025. Oops, not 4. 5. Lunar New Year. Are you going to tell me? The wood snake. It was the wood snake. So wood related to earth, kind of, but no, it was the wood snake. From the wood snake to the fire horse. What did Usher say? The answer I'm looking for is let it burn. And not in that kind of way, girl. I'm sorry. Anyway, I will catch y'all later. I think this is pretty much what I wanted to do. No plans to go live, but you know, there are plenty of times I don't necessarily plan on going live. Is there anything else that I feel like I left unsaid? I don't think so. There was the whole Fanuel. Did I even read Fanuel? I don't think I did. But again, it was the whole. Will I? Sure. Now that I actually have my glasses, I am more motivated to read. I'm just gonna look real quick. What did Arnold say in that one Simpsons movie? I was elected to lead, not to read. Well, can you do both? If you're gonna lead, can you be, I don't know, informed? This is the Fanuel, Angel of Truth. And it reads, this most patient attendant will wait for your arrival. Fanuel has been here long before you arrived, standing in the gateway to the throne. You may not have seen it, you may not have heard it, but Fanuel waited there for you to wrap you in its warm cloak. Seek it, and you shall find it. And then again, with dominance, know your place, sit on your throne. Your place is on the throne, Henny. Maybe you got a pierced knee because one of them wands got you, but it's like that's something that you can wear with pride, not something that ill defines you. So, all right, I'll catch y'all next time. Pretty sure that's it.